Family gatherings in my family were never fun, just something we had to do twice a year, Christmas and my mom's birthday. I only went out of obligation, but this year, I was done with all of it. A little background, I'm the older sibling, and my younger brother Lucas was always the golden child. He could do anything wrong, and my parents would still make excuses for him. Meanwhile, I got punished for the smallest things. Lucas never held a job for more than 6 months. At 34, he was still living with our parents, not paying for anything or helping around the house. My parents spoiled him and leaned on me for everything: money, fixing their house, and listening to Lucas's drama whenever he got dumped. But this year, I was done being their backup plan, so I sold my house. When I arrived at my parents' house, something felt off. My mom looked overly happy, and Lucas had this smug smile. During dinner, my dad nudged Lucas to speak. Lucas stood up, grinning, and announced, "Mom and Dad decided I should move into your house." I stared at him, shocked. My mom added, "Since you travel so much for work, it makes sense for Lucas to stay there instead of wasting money on rent." They never asked me or even mentioned it before. They just decided on their own that my house was Lucas's new hangout spot. I calmly took a sip of my drink and replied, "That's funny because I sold it last week." Lucas's smile disappeared. My mom's face went pale. My dad choked on his drink. "What?" my mom finally said. "I sold the house," I repeated, sliding a thick envelope toward Lucas. "Here's the sale contract. I knew you'd try something like this, so I came prepared." Lucas opened the envelope and looked horrified. "No, you can't do this," Mom and Dad said. "They don't own my house." I cut him off. "And neither do you." My mom started crying. "How could you do this? Your brother needs a place to live." I shrugged. "He's 34. He can figure it out." Lucas slammed the papers down. "Just buy another place and let me stay there until then." I laughed. "You seriously expect me to buy another house just so you can live in it? Listen to yourself." I stood up and grabbed my coat. "Not my problem." My dad finally spoke. "This was selfish of you. You know your brother isn't as successful as you." "That's because he's never had to be," I replied. "You both keep babying him." And then I walked out. The following weeks were great for me. Lucas went to the house, only to find a retired couple living there. He threw a fit, got kicked off the property, and my parents kept calling me to fix it. I blocked them. Then the extended family started bombarding me with messages about how Lucas is homeless because of you, and your parents are heartbroken. I ignored them all. Lucas ended up moving into my parents' basement, at 34, sleeping on their couch like he never left. Karma. I took my money and went on a long vacation, planning never to go back. Just when I thought it was all over, my mom called me from a restricted number. I usually ignore those, but something told me to answer. "Where the hell are you?" she screeched. "We've been trying to reach you for days." "I blocked all of you for a reason," I replied. "Lucas got evicted," she yelled. "Evicted? From your house?" I asked, confused. She sighed like the victim. "Yes, we let him use our credit cards for emergencies, but he maxed them all out." I almost laughed. "You gave him credit cards? How stupid are you? Don't talk to me like that. Then stop acting like I owe you something." She tried to sound reasonable. "We need your help. Your father and I are struggling financially. Lucas has nowhere to go. You have to fix this." "No, that's your problem," I said. "But we're family." "Oh, you think I still live somewhere you know?" I said. "That's adorable." "What do you mean?" she asked, panicking. "I moved," I said, and hung up. "Where? Wouldn't you like to know?" I hung up. The stalker phase, ignoring my family, turned out to be harder than I thought. They wouldn't just let me go, especially Lucas. He wasn't ready to move on. At first, it was calls from unknown numbers, dozens of them every day, then emails from fake accounts. I ignored them all, but it only got worse. One day, I got a notification from my bank. Someone tried to get into my account. I quickly changed all my passwords and set up extra security, but something still felt wrong. The next morning, I got an email from my realtor. "Hey, just confirming your change of address request." "What?" I called her right away. "What request?" She said someone called, pretending to be me, asking for my new address. They even gave some of my personal details, like my old address and birthday, but my realtor got suspicious when they couldn't answer a basic security question. I knew it was Lucas. This wasn't just him being mad, he was actively trying to find me. The confrontation, I decided to stop playing defense. If Lucas wanted to mess with me, I was ready to fight back. I unblocked my parents, and as soon as I did, my mom's number popped up. I answered. "What the hell is wrong with Lucas?" I snapped. She sounded offended. "Why are you so angry? You haven't spoken to us in weeks." "You mean the weeks where Lucas tried to steal my identity?" Silence. "Yeah, that's right," I said. "Why is your golden boy trying to get my private information?" "He wouldn't do that." "Oh, so it's just a coincidence someone tried to change my address? Tried to get into my bank account? And it all started right after I cut Lucas off?" My mom sighed. He's desperate. You left him, his life is ruined, and all you do is make things worse." "No, he ruined his own life," I shot back, "and if he keeps this up, I'm calling the police." Now she panicked. "The police?" "Yes, the police. I have proof, so tell your precious boy to back off, or he'll be spending time in jail." She started begging, "Please, just talk to him, help him one last time." I took a deep breath. "Fine, put him on the phone." There was some shuffling, then Lucas's voice came on, sounding smug. "Oh, now you want to talk? I just want to know one thing, Lucas." Silence. "What was your plan if you got my address? Were you going to show up and demand I let you live in my new place?" No answer. "You really thought I wouldn't fight back?" I laughed. "You've always counted on me saving you whenever you mess up, but not anymore. If you fall now, you're hitting the ground hard." "You think you're better than me?" he hissed. "No," I said calmly, "I know I'm better than you." I hung up. I thought things would calm down after that, but 3 days later, I got a text from a friend. "Hey, saw something weird about you on Facebook. Thought you should know." My heart sank. I opened the link and found a public post from a shady-looking account, but it was all about me. Lies. It said I abandoned my dying parents, stole money from them, and left them to suffer while I lived a fancy life. The comments were awful. Wow, disgusting. How could someone do that to their own family? I hope they lose everything. Then I saw who shared it, Lucas and my mom. They weren't just angry, they wanted to ruin my reputation. That was their biggest mistake. Honestly, I wasn't even surprised. My family always played the victim, twisting the truth to make themselves look innocent. But what really made me angry was how far they went. This wasn't just some Facebook rant. They called my job, contacted my friends, and even reached out to my ex. Suddenly, I was getting messages from everyone. "Is it true? Why would you do that to your family? Did you really steal from them?" This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was a full-on smear campaign, and I was done playing nice. I spent the next few days gathering evidence. Screenshots of Lucas's attempts to steal my identity. His messages harassing me for money. Proof that I never took money from my parents. If anything, they stole from me. Then, I hired a tough lawyer who loved cases like this. We sent them all cease and desist letters, demanding they take down the lies and stop spreading false information. I thought they'd back off, maybe delete everything and finally leave me alone. I was wrong. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. My parents and Lucas were suing me. They claimed I caused them emotional distress, stole money from them, and left them broke while I enjoyed a fancy lifestyle. I looked at the papers and almost laughed. They had no case. They just thought I'd be too scared to fight back. Big mistake. The first court hearing was a disaster, for them. Lucas showed up in a suit that didn't fit, looking like a kid playing dress-up. My parents sat beside him, fake tears ready to go. Their lawyer was a cheap, low-quality guy who only took their case for the money. My lawyer tore them apart. We showed all the evidence, bank records proving I never stole anything, Lucas's harassment messages, his attempts at identity theft. The judge took one look at it all and basically said, "Are you serious?" The case was thrown out. Lucas lost it. "This isn't fair," he yelled. "She ruined my life." The judge glared. "Sir, calm down, or I'll hold you in contempt of court." Their big revenge plan completely backfired. But I wasn't finished. The next day, I sued them for defamation, emotional distress, and harassment. Lucas thought I was bluffing until the court ruled in my favor. I won a big settlement, and since my parents co-signed Lucas's debts, they had to pay up. My mom begged me not to collect the money. "I'm your mother," she cried. "Please don't do this. You should have thought of that before trying to ruin my life," I said. She called me heartless, but I didn't care. I made sure they paid every cent. Lucas was broke. My parents were ruined. And me? I took my money and walked away for good. Months later, I got an email from Lucas. The subject line, "You win, but you should know something." I almost didn't open it, but I was too curious. The email was short. Mom and Dad lied to me too. They told me they had money saved for me, that I'd be taken care of, but they never saved a dime. The house? It was supposed to be mine. That's why they wanted me to move in. They needed you to keep it so I'd have something. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Then I read the worst part. They're in deep debt, not just from the lawsuit. They owe money to bad people, and now that they're broke, those people are coming after them. My blood went cold. I knew my parents were bad with money, but bad people? How bad are we talking? And just like that, I realized, this wasn't over. I sat there for a long time, just trying to process everything. My parents had lied to everyone, not just me, not just Lucas, everyone. They weren't just bad with money, they were in serious trouble with dangerous people, and now, those people were coming to collect, and if my parents couldn't pay? Someone was going to get hurt. I had two choices, walk away and let them deal with their mess, or find out how bad things really were. Against my better judgment, I decided to find out. It didn't take long to figure out what was going on. I made a few calls and looked at some records, and the truth hit me like a truck. My parents owed over $100,000, not just to banks or credit card companies, but to loan sharks. And Lucas? He wasn't the only one messing up. Turns out, my dad had a gambling problem. My mom had been covering for him for years. When their money ran out, they started borrowing from anyone who would lend them money. When that wasn't enough, they made promises they couldn't keep. When I sold my house, that was the last thing they were counting on. Now, with nothing left, someone was coming to collect. 2 days later, Lucas showed up at my door. I had no idea how he found me, but there he was, messy, desperate, and terrified. He didn't look anything like the arrogant jerk I grew up with. "I need your help," he said. I crossed my arms. "Why would I help you?" His hands were shaking. "Because if you don't, someone's going to die." For the first time ever, I saw real fear in Lucas's eyes. "They came to the house," he whispered. "Mom and Dad thought they could talk their way out of it. They were wrong." "What happened?" I asked, feeling sick to my stomach. Lucas swallowed hard. "They trashed the place, took everything valuable, left a warning." "What kind of warning?" Lucas rolled up his sleeve, showing me a fresh, nasty bruise on his arm. "They said if they don't get their money soon, next time it won't just be a warning." I took a deep breath. "So, what, you want me to pay off their debt?" Lucas shook his head. "No, I want you to help me take them down." I didn't want to get involved. I had spent years getting away from my family's mess, but this was different. So, I did something they never expected. I went to the police. I gave them everything, the fake lawsuit, the identity theft, the fraud, and proof of their debts. Then, I went to the loan sharks, not with money, but with evidence. I showed them exactly what my parents had, how they had hidden assets, and how they had lied to everyone. Within a week, my parents were arrested for fraud, tax evasion, and other crimes. They had scammed people, borrowed money they never planned to pay back, and now, they were heading to prison. Lucas? He had a choice, keep running or finally do the right thing. For once, he made the right choice. He testified against our parents, told the court everything, and helped the police uncover every scam, every lie, and every debt. It didn't make up for what he had done, but it was a start. He got probation, community service, and a chance to rebuild his life. My parents were sentenced to 5 years in prison. Lucas started getting his life together, and me? I got what I wanted all along, peace. No more calls, no more lies, no more drama. I was free, and it felt amazing. The end.
The moment Linda grabbed the microphone, I should have known my perfect day was about to shatter. But there I sat, radiant in my white dress, my new husband Craig's hand warm in mine, believing this was finally my moment of triumph. I'm Martina, and this is the story of how my stepmother turned my wedding reception into ground zero for the biggest family explosion of my life. Just moments before, everything had been exactly as I'd dreamed. The fairy lights twinkled across the garden venue, my carefully crafted menu was receiving endless compliments, and even my usually stoic father had tears in his eyes during our dance. "The salmon is divine," Linda announced, standing up and tapping her glass with a silver spoon. Almost as impressive as the fact that my stepdaughter managed to pull off this wedding while her catering business is facing bankruptcy. The crystal champagne flute slipped from my fingers, shattering against the table. Craig's grip tightened on my hand as whispers rippled through the crowd. "Linda, sit down," my father Edison warned, his voice sharp. She smiled that perfect real estate agent smile of hers. "Oh, come now. Everyone should know what they're getting into. Craig's family especially deserves to know that their new daughter-in-law is drowning in debt." "That's enough." Craig stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "This is our wedding day." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Around me, 200 guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their eyes either fixed on their plates or openly staring at me with pity. "Did you tell them about the missed payments, dear?" Linda continued, her voice dripping with false concern. "Or how you begged the bank for an extension last week?" My best friend Krista appeared beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "Don't listen to her, Martina. She's just trying to hurt you." But the damage was done. I could see Craig's father Paul whispering to his wife, their faces drawn with concern. The caterers I'd hired, colleagues from my early days in the industry, were exchanging glances. My reputation, both personal and professional, was unraveling with each word Linda spoke. "I'm only looking out for everyone's best interests," Linda said, spreading her hands. "It would be irresponsible not to—" "Stop it, Mom!" My stepsister Alyssa's quiet voice cut through the chaos. She stood up slowly, her hands shaking. "Just stop." Linda's perfect smile faltered for just a moment. "Darling, sit down. This doesn't concern you." "I think it does," Alyssa replied, her voice stronger now. She turned to face me, her eyes full of apology. "Martina, I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner." "Alyssa," Linda warned, but something had changed in her voice. Was that fear? I found my voice at last, pushing back my chair. "Told me what?" The silence that followed felt endless. Linda's face had lost its triumphant glow, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Panic. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately," my father suggested, standing up. "No," I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. "No more secrets, no more private discussions where Linda gets to control the narrative." "What were you going to tell me, Alyssa?" My quiet stepsister looked directly at Linda, then back at me. "The truth about where the family money has really been going these past 6 months." Linda lunged for the microphone, but Alyssa was faster. In that moment, watching my stepmother's perfectly manicured hands grasping at air, I realized everything was about to change. "Don't you dare," Linda hissed, but her usual authority had crumbled. "I've seen the bank statements," Alyssa continued, her voice trembling but clear. "I've seen the withdrawals, the casino receipts, the hidden credit cards." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. My father's face went pale. "Edison," Linda turned to him, her voice honeyed again. "Don't listen to these ridiculous accusations. I would never—" "Show him the proof, Alyssa," I heard myself say, standing straighter. "Show everyone exactly who's been lying about money problems." Linda's eyes met mine, and for the first time in 15 years, I didn't shrink under her gaze. Instead, I watched as her carefully constructed world began to crumble, just as she had tried to destroy mine. "This wedding is over," Linda announced, grabbing her purse. But as she turned to leave, I saw what she didn't. Not a single person stood to follow her, not even my father. Craig pulled me close, his arms steady around me. "Are you okay?" I wasn't, not even close. But as I looked around at the faces of our guests, no longer pitying but shocked and supportive, I felt something shift inside me. The need for Linda's approval, the constant fear of her judgment, began to fade. "No," I answered honestly, squeezing his hand. "But I think I'm about to be." 3 months before my wedding, I stood in Linda's pristine kitchen, clutching a folder of business projections while she sipped her morning coffee. That day marked my 100th attempt to earn her approval, and my 100th failure. "Honestly, Martina, I don't understand why you insist on this catering venture," she said, barely glancing at my carefully prepared documents. "Your father and I could set you up with a real career in real estate." My business is real, I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. We've catered 3 major corporate events this month alone. She raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. And yet here you are, asking for advice about a business loan. I'm not asking for money, I clarified quickly. I just wanted your opinion on the expansion plan. Since you've built your own business. Let me stop you right there. Linda set down her coffee cup with a sharp clink. Your little cooking hobby isn't comparable to what I've built. Do you know how many properties I sold last year? Before I could answer, my father walked in, his tie slightly crooked. Morning, sweetheart, he said, kissing my cheek. What's all this? Just trying to talk some sense into your daughter, Linda sighed. She's still pursuing this catering fantasy. Dad picked up one of my spreadsheets. These numbers look impressive, Martina. Is this all from the hospital contract? Yes, and we have 2 more corporate clients lined up, I said, grateful for his interest. That's why I'm considering the loan, to expand our kitchen space. Linda's laugh cut through the air. Edison, please. She's getting married in 3 months. Shouldn't she be focusing on starting a family instead of playing restaurant? I can do both, I insisted, but my voice sounded small even to my own ears. The way you did both when you burned those appetizers at the Thompson wedding? Linda's words struck like precise arrows. What was it they called them? Charcoal squares? That was 2 years ago, I protested. We've grown since then. Have you? She stood, smoothing her silk blouse. Because I heard the Harrison corporate lunch last week was served late. 20 minutes late, to be exact. My stomach dropped. How did you— I have connections, dear. I hear things. She touched my father's arm. Edison, we should get going. That showing won't wait. Dad hesitated, looking between us. Maybe we could discuss this more over dinner. Nothing to discuss, Linda said firmly. Martina knows I'm right, don't you, dear? I gathered my papers with trembling hands, decades of similar conversations echoing in my head. The time she'd called my college choice pedestrian. The day she'd described my first apartment as quaint, with that same dismissive smile. Actually, I said, straightening my spine, I've already applied for the loan. Linda froze. You what? I applied last week. The bank's reviewing it now. Without consulting us? She turned to my father. Edison, did you hear this? Dad looked uncomfortable. She's an adult, Linda. If she believes in her business— Oh, please. Linda's voice turned sharp. When this fails, and it will fail, don't come crying to us. We won't bail you out. I won't need bailing out, I said, but my confidence was wavering. Right. She smiled that real estate smile again. Just like you didn't need help after the Thompson disaster, or after your first location flooded. Face it, Martina, you're not cut out for this. Linda, my father warned, but she continued. I'm being kind. Someone needs to be honest with her. This business will bankrupt you, and then what? You'll drag Craig down with you? Shame his family? I walked out of her kitchen that day with my folder clutched to my chest, her words following me like persistent shadows. But something else followed me too, a quiet determination I hadn't felt before. That evening, Krista found me in my small commercial kitchen, aggressively kneading bread dough. Rough day? She asked, hopping onto a clean counter. Linda, I said, punching the dough harder than necessary. Ah. She watched me work for a moment. You know she's wrong about you, right? I stopped kneading. Is she? The loan officer looked pretty skeptical today. Hey! Krista jumped down and grabbed my flour-covered hands. Remember when we catered that wedding in the middle of that freak storm? Everyone said we should cancel, but you found a way. You always find a way. That was different. No, it wasn't. You're good at this, Martina. Really good. Don't let her make you doubt that. I looked around my small kitchen, the gleaming equipment, the organized shelves, the wall of happy client testimonials. Everything I'd built, despite Linda's constant predictions of failure. You're right, I said finally. I wish she could see it too. Maybe she does, Krista suggested. Maybe that's exactly what scares her. I didn't know then how right Krista was, or how Linda's fear would eventually expose itself at my wedding. I just knew that for the first time, I was done trying to earn her approval, Back at my wedding reception, the silence following Alyssa's revelation felt like a physical weight. Linda stood frozen, her perfectly maintained facade cracking at the edges. My father's face had gone from shocked to ashen as he stared at his wife of 15 years. The casino receipts, Alyssa continued, her voice stronger now, show withdrawals of over $50,000 in the past 3 months alone. You went through my personal records? Linda's voice shook with rage. They weren't exactly hidden, Alyssa replied. You left them open on your laptop, multiple times. Craig squeezed my hand as I watched the scene unfold. His father Paul had moved closer to our table, his expression a mix of relief and vindication. I always knew something wasn't right about her, he muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. Linda's eyes darted around the room like a cornered animal's. Edison, surely you don't believe these ridiculous accusations? My father slowly stood up, his hands trembling as he reached for his phone. Show me the proof, Alyssa. Daddy, don't, Linda started, but Alyssa was already pulling out her own phone. I took pictures, she said quietly. Of everything. The bank statements, the credit card bills, the IOUs from the Golden Palace Casino. The crowd of wedding guests had formed a loose circle around us, their earlier discomfort at my supposed financial troubles forgotten in light of this new drama. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant even, but watching my father's face as he scrolled through Alyssa's evidence just made my heart ache. 60,000 in March, he read aloud, his voice hollow, 85,000 in April, 120,000 in May. He looked up at Linda. Our anniversary weekend, when you said you were at a real estate convention. I can explain, Linda said quickly. The market's been difficult. I needed to cover some temporary losses. By gambling away our savings? My father's voice cracked. Krista appeared at my side with a glass of water. Drink this, she whispered. You're shaking. I hadn't even noticed, but she was right. My hands trembled as I lifted the glass to my lips. I was going to win it back, Linda insisted, her composure slipping further. I had a system, I just needed a little more time. Time? Alyssa interrupted. Like the time you spent trying to destroy Martina's reputation, making her doubt herself, all while you were stealing from our family? Linda spun toward her daughter. I was protecting this family. Everything I've done was for yourself, I found myself saying. The words came out clear and strong, surprising even me. It was always for yourself, Linda. The criticism, the manipulation, the constant undermining, it was all to keep everyone focused on our supposed failures instead of your own. You ungrateful little... Linda started toward me, but Craig stepped between us. That's enough, he said firmly. Security will escort you out if necessary. Linda's eyes widened as she realized how many people were watching. Her carefully curated image as the successful, sophisticated real estate mogul was crumbling in front of Phoenix's entire upper society. Edison. She tried one last time, reaching for my father's arm. He pulled away as if her touch burned. How much? He asked quietly. How much in total? Alyssa swallowed hard. From what I've found, just over $800,000. The gasps around the room were audible. My father sank back into his chair, looking suddenly old. I trusted you, he whispered, with everything. Daddy, please, Linda's voice had turned desperate. We can fix this. I'll get help. Security, Craig called, and 2 men in dark suits appeared almost instantly. As they approached, Linda straightened her spine, trying to salvage what dignity she had left. Fine. I'll leave. But remember, Martina, you did this. You destroyed this family. I stepped forward, finally free of the fear that had controlled me for so long. No, Linda. You did that all on your own. They led her away, her heels clicking against the floor in angry staccato. The moment she disappeared, Alyssa collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I should have said something sooner. I was scared of her too. I moved to her side, wrapping my arms around my stepsister. You were incredibly brave tonight. But the wedding, I ruined everything. I looked around at the gathered guests, at Craig standing protective and proud beside me. at my father being comforted by his oldest friends, even at Paul, who now viewed me with respect instead of suspicion. "You didn't ruin anything," I told her. "You just helped us all see the truth." Krista raised her glass. "To the truth," she called out, and slowly, tentatively, other glasses rose to join hers. As the murmur of conversation gradually returned to the reception, I felt lighter somehow. The weight of Linda's judgment, her constant criticism, had lifted. But looking at my father's broken expression, I knew this was just the beginning of a much longer story. The microphone felt heavy in my hands as I stood up. The reception hall had descended into chaos. Clusters of guests whispering, phones discreetly recording, my father still staring blankly at Alyssa's evidence. "Everyone, please," I said into the mic. My voice echoed through the speakers, commanding attention. "I have something to say." Craig touched my arm. "Martina, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." I squeezed his hand before facing our guests. "For 15 years, I've lived under Linda's shadow, believing I wasn't good enough, that my business wasn't good enough, that I would never measure up to her standards." The room fell silent. Even the waiters stopped clearing plates. "She told everyone I was facing bankruptcy," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "And you know what? My business did struggle this year. We lost a major client. Our equipment needed expensive repairs. That's not failure. That's reality. That's business." Paul nodded slowly from his seat, his earlier suspicion replaced with something like respect. "But while I was fighting to keep my business alive, being honest with my creditors, making payment plans..." I held up my phone, displaying the proof Alyssa had sent me. Linda was losing hundreds of thousands at the Golden Palace Casino. The large screen behind me, meant for wedding photos, suddenly lit up. Alyssa had connected her laptop, projecting the evidence for everyone to see. "March 15th, I read from the statement. $25,000 withdrawn at 2 a.m. March 16th, another 30,000. March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 65,000. "That was the day she told me my business plan was amateur," I added, looking directly at my father. "She said I didn't understand money management." Someone in the crowd let out a bitter laugh. "April 3rd, I continued, $40,000. April 4th, 50,000. April 5th, the day of my final wedding dress fitting, 70,000. She spent more at the blackjack table that night than my entire catering business makes in a month." "Oh my God," Krista whispered, staring at the numbers. "But here's the real kicker." I swiped to another document. "May 21st, Linda took out a third mortgage on our family home. Dad, she forged your signature." My father's head snapped up. "What?" "The bank called me yesterday," Alyssa said, her voice shaking. "They were trying to reach Mom about missed payments. They faxed over the paperwork." The projector displayed the mortgage document, my father's clearly forged signature stark against the white paper. "I've already contacted the police," I said, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "They'll be waiting to speak with her at home." The room erupted in gasps and exclamations. My father buried his face in his hands. "So yes, my business had a rough year," I announced. "Yes, I took out a loan to expand. And yes, I'm proud of every single struggle because I faced them honestly. I didn't steal. I didn't lie. I didn't destroy my family's trust." Craig stood beside me, his arm around my waist. "That's my wife," he said proudly into the mic, drawing scattered applause. "Linda spent years making me feel small," I continued, "making all of us feel small. She criticized my dreams while gambling away our futures. She questioned my integrity while committing fraud." I turned to my father, who looked years older than he had this morning. "Dad, I'm so sorry, but you needed to know." He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. "I should have seen it." "She fooled everyone," Alyssa said softly. "She was really good at it." The sound of police sirens filtered in from outside. Several guests rushed to the windows, watching as 2 patrol cars pulled up to the venue. "Mrs. Fowler?" A police officer appeared in the doorway. "We received a call about potential fraud charges." "She left," I told them, "but I can tell you exactly where she's going." "The Golden Palace," Alyssa confirmed. "It's where she always goes when she's upset." The officers nodded, speaking quietly into their radios before departing. The room felt electric with tension and unfolding drama. "Well," Paul said, standing up and raising his glass, "I think it's time for a proper toast. To Martina and Craig, who just gave us a wedding reception none of us will ever forget." Laughter rippled through the crowd as glasses were raised. "And to honesty," Krista added, "however ugly it might be." I looked around at the faces of our guests, no longer judging, no longer pitying, but understanding. Even those who had initially believed Linda's accusations about my business now wore expressions of sympathy and support. "The truth really does set you free," I said quietly to Craig. He kissed my forehead. "You were amazing. Scary, but amazing." "Scary good or scary bad?" "Scary perfect," he smiled. "Now, shall we salvage what's left of our wedding reception?" I nodded, finally feeling like I could breathe freely. "Yes. But first, I need to make sure Dad's okay." As I walked toward my father, I realized that while this wasn't the wedding day I'd planned, it was exactly the day I needed, the day we all needed, to finally break free from Linda's web of lies. The week after my wedding felt like walking through a minefield of consequences. I sat in my small office at the catering company, staring at my phone as it buzzed with another news alert. Local real estate mogul arrested for fraud and gambling with client funds. A knock on my door made me jump. "Come in." Alyssa peeked in, looking exhausted. "Dad's asking for you. He's at the house." "How is he?" I hadn't seen him since the wedding night, when he'd retreated into himself after the police took Linda away. "Broken," she said simply. The bank called again. Linda wasn't just gambling with family money, she was using her real estate company's escrow accounts. My stomach dropped. "How much?" $2 million, maybe more. Alyssa collapsed into the chair across from my desk. "The FBI is involved now." I grabbed my keys. "Let's go." The drive to my childhood home felt surreal. Police tape still marked the entrance where they'd executed a search warrant 2 days ago. Inside, we found my father sitting in his study, surrounded by stacks of financial documents. "The house is gone," he said without looking up. "The cars, the vacation property in Sedona, my retirement fund, all gone." "We'll figure it out," I said, kneeling beside his chair. He finally met my eyes. Craig's father called. "They're pulling their investment from my company." "What? But you had nothing to do with—" "Doesn't matter. The scandal's too big. Nobody wants to be associated with the name." He laughed bitterly. 30 years of building a reputation, destroyed in 1 week. "Dad, was I really that blind?" he interrupted. "Did I just not want to see it?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Alyssa went to answer it, returning with Krista. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but you need to see this." She held up her tablet, showing a local news website. There was Linda's mugshot, alongside a headline, "Disgraced realtor's stepdaughter orchestrated public humiliation at wedding." "She's giving interviews from jail," Krista explained, "saying you and Alyssa planned this to destroy her reputation because you were jealous of her success." "That's ridiculous," Alyssa protested. "It gets worse." Krista scrolled down. "She's claiming you fabricated the evidence about her gambling to cover up your own financial misdeeds." I felt the room spin slightly. "Who's believing this?" "Some of our biggest corporate clients are getting nervous," Krista admitted. 3 have already called to cancel their contracts. My father stood up suddenly. "This is my fault. If I hadn't brought her into our lives—" "Stop," I said firmly. "You're not responsible for her actions." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Craig, looking worried. "My parents are asking us to move," he said without preamble. "They think staying in Phoenix will hurt my law career." "Because of Linda?" I felt anger rising in my chest. He nodded. "Dad's firm is worried about association. They're offering to transfer me to their Seattle office." "You can't be serious." "I told them no," Craig said quickly. "But things are getting complicated. The media is camped outside our apartment. My clients are asking questions." I looked around at everyone. My father aged beyond his years, Alyssa fighting tears, Krista trying to be strong, Craig caught between loyalty and practicality. "I won't let her win," I said suddenly. "I won't let her turn us into victims." "Martina," my father started, but I cut him off. No, Dad. She spent years making us doubt ourselves, making us feel small, and now she's trying to do it again, even from jail. I turned to Craig. I won't run away. This is our home. The business, Krista began. We'll survive, I finished. We'll be transparent with our clients, show them our books, prove we're nothing like her. Alyssa straightened up. I have all the evidence, everything. We can fight back. It won't be easy, Craig warned. The media loves a scandal. Then we'll give them a different story, I said. Not about Linda's betrayal, but about how a family stands together, how we rebuild. My father looked at me for a long moment. When did you get so strong? I learned from watching you, Dad, before Linda. When you built your company from nothing, when you taught me about integrity and hard work. I took his hand. We can do that again. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed this. Finally, Krista spoke up. Well, I know where to start, she said, pulling out her phone. The Memorial Hospital contract. They're wavering, but they haven't canceled yet. Let's call them. Right now. Show them we're not hiding. Craig nodded. I'll talk to my firm. Make them understand that standing by us is better PR than running away. And I'll help Dad sort through the financial mess, Alyssa added. There might be assets Linda couldn't touch. Looking around at my family, both blood and chosen, I felt something shift. Linda had tried to destroy us, but somehow she'd only made us stronger. Okay, I said, picking up my phone. Let's get to work. And that's why you should trust us with your corporate events, I finished, standing before the board of directors at Phoenix Memorial Hospital. We've been transparent about our challenges, and we're stronger for facing them head-on. The hospital's CEO, Dr. Roberts, leaned forward. Your stepmother's scandal made headlines, Martina. Our shareholders are nervous. I understand, I said, pulling out my tablet. That's why I brought our complete financial records, client testimonials, and a detailed plan for your upcoming charity gala. The same gala Linda claimed you couldn't afford to cater? Another board member asked. Yes, and I'd like to show you exactly why she was wrong. For the next 20 minutes, I walked them through everything. Our books, our contingency plans, our staff credentials. When I finished, Dr. Roberts smiled. Well, I must say this is the most thorough presentation we've seen. Thank you, but no buts, she interrupted. We're keeping you on. In fact, we'd like to discuss expanding our contract to include the medical conference in September. I practically floated back to my kitchen, where Krista was supervising prep work for a wedding that weekend. They said yes, I announced, causing several staff members to cheer. Of course they did, Krista grinned. You're kind of scary when you're determined. Speaking of scary, a voice called from the doorway. You've got another visitor. Craig stood there with his father Paul, who looked distinctly uncomfortable. Paul, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. This is unexpected. Could we talk privately? I led him to my office, Craig following close behind. Paul paced for a moment before speaking. I was wrong, he said finally. About you, about everything. Dad's been doing some thinking, Craig added softly. I let Linda's accusations cloud my judgment, Paul continued. But watching you these past few weeks, how you've handled this situation, how you've protected your family while building your business back up. He cleared his throat. Well, I'm impressed. Thank you, I said carefully. But nothing. He pulled out a business card. My firm hosts monthly partner lunches. We've been using the same caterer for 10 years, but their service has gotten sloppy. I'd like to give you a shot at the contract. My hands shook slightly as I took the card. That's very generous. It's not generosity, it's business sense. You've proven yourself trustworthy under pressure. That's rare. After Paul left, Craig pulled me into a hug. See? Things are turning around. Slowly, I agreed. But what about your firm? Are they still pressuring you to transfer? Actually, he grinned, they're making me partner. Dad convinced them my family loyalty during the crisis showed good character. The kitchen door burst open and Alyssa rushed in. Martina, you need to see this. She thrust her phone at me. On the screen was an email from one of Linda's former real estate clients, a major hotel developer. They want to meet with us, Alyssa explained breathlessly. They're planning a chain of boutique hotels and need a catering service that can handle multiple locations. Us? I looked up, confused. Well, I might have shown them some of your work, and mentioned that I've been helping with the business side since everything happened. Alyssa, are you saying you want to work here? She nodded. I'm good with numbers. I caught Mom's scheme, didn't I? And you need someone to handle the business side while you focus on the culinary part. Plus, Craig added, having a former finance major managing the books will make clients feel extra secure. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was my father. Dad, everything okay? Better than okay, he said, sounding more energetic than he had in weeks. Remember that small property I bought in Scottsdale years ago? The one Linda never knew about? The old restaurant space? What about it? I just had it appraised. It's worth 3 times what I paid for it. If you're interested, it could make a perfect second location for your catering business. I sat down hard in my office chair. Dad, I can't accept that. You're not accepting anything. I'm investing in my daughter's business, properly, legally, with real contracts and everything. He paused. Let me do this, Martina. Let me help you build something honest. Looking around my small office, at Craig's proud smile, at Alyssa's hopeful face, at Krista directing staff through the kitchen window, I felt tears well up. Okay, I said, but we do this right. Full partnership agreement, everything in writing. I wouldn't have it any other way, Dad replied, and I could hear him smiling. After hanging up, I turned to Alyssa. So, future business partner, ready to help me crunch some numbers for this hotel chain proposal? She beamed. Already started a spreadsheet. That's my wife, Craig laughed, always landing on her feet. No, I corrected him, pulling out my laptop. That's my family, all of us, landing on our feet together. The county jail's visiting room was colder than I expected. I sat at the metal table, watching Linda approach in her orange jumpsuit, her perfectly maintained appearance now stripped down to basics. No designer clothes, no expensive makeup, no carefully crafted facade. Well, she said, sitting down across from me, come to gloat? No. I placed my hands flat on the table. I came to return something. I pulled out her old business card, the one she'd given me years ago when I first started my catering company. She stared at it, her jaw tightening. You kept this? It was my motivation, I admitted. Every time I doubted myself, I'd look at it and think about proving you wrong. She laughed bitterly. And now you have. Congratulations. I hear your business is thriving. It is. We just signed the hotel chain contract. With my former clients, her eyes flashed. Alyssa told me, my own daughter, stealing my contacts. She didn't steal anything. They came to us because they trust us. Trust, Linda spat the word. Is that why you're here? To lecture me about trust? I leaned forward. I'm here because I need to understand. All those years of criticism, of making me feel worthless. Was it because you saw this coming? Did you know you were gambling everything away? Something flickered across her face. Pain, maybe, or regret. You don't understand addiction, she said quietly. You're right, I don't. But I understand lying. I understand manipulation. I understand making others feel small to make yourself feel big. Is that what you think I was doing? Wasn't you? She was silent for a long moment, staring at her hands. The first time I went to the casino, it was after your father praised your catering at that Christmas party. Everyone was raving about your food, your business sense, your potential. And that bothered you? It terrified me. Her voice cracked slightly. I'd spent so long being the successful one, the one with all the answers. But there you were, building something real, something honest. While I was... She trailed off. While you were losing everything at the blackjack table, I finished. The more I lost, the more I needed to prove I was still in control, still perfect. She looked up at me. And you were an easy target. Because I wanted your approval. Because you reminded me of who I used to be, before the gambling, before the lies. You had dreams, determination, everything I'd lost. A guard approached, signaling 5 minutes remaining. Dad's rebuilding his company, I told her. Smaller scale, but honest work. Alyssa's amazing with the business side of things, and Craig's family, they've come around. How nice for you all. Her voice turned cold again. One big happy family while I rot in here. You did this to yourself, Linda. Every criticism, every lie, every stolen dollar, those were your choices. And exposing me at your wedding? Was that your choice? Or did my darling daughter plan that all along? Alyssa protected you for months. She tried to get you help. You refused. Linda's hands clenched into fists. She betrayed me. You all betrayed me. No, I said firmly. You betrayed us, and now you're trying to blame everyone else because you can't face what you've done. Time's up, the guard called. I stood, gathering my purse. I didn't come here to gloat, Linda. I came to tell you that I forgive you. She looked up sharply. What? Not for my sake, but for mine. I'm done letting your opinion control my life. I'm done trying to prove myself to someone who never wanted to see my worth in the first place. How dare you? Goodbye, Linda. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Dad's filing for divorce. The papers should arrive tomorrow. As I walked away, I heard her call after me. You think you're better than me? You think this makes you win? I didn't turn around. Through the heavy door, down the fluorescent-lit hallway, past the security checkpoint, I kept walking. Outside, Craig was waiting in the car. How did it go? He asked as I buckled in. Exactly as expected. I took a deep breath of free air. She's still trying to control the narrative. And you? I'm done with her narrative. It's time to write my own story. He smiled, starting the car. Speaking of stories, wait until you hear what happened at the kitchen today. Your dad stopped by with those investors from Dubai. As Craig filled me in on the latest business developments, I felt the last weight of Linda's influence lift from my shoulders. She would always be part of my history, but she no longer had the power to shape my future. My phone buzzed with a text from Alyssa. Just booked 2 more corporate events. Come celebrate with us. Take me to the kitchen, I told Craig. My family's waiting. He squeezed my hand as we drove away from the jail, leaving Linda and her manipulations behind. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fighting back. It's simply walking away and building something better. The grand opening banner fluttered in the warm Arizona breeze as I unlocked the doors to our new Scottsdale location. The renovated space gleamed with professional kitchen equipment, elegant dining areas, and a state-of-the-art demonstration kitchen for cooking classes. Ready? Alyssa asked, clipboard in hand. Almost. I adjusted a vase of fresh flowers on the welcome desk. Where's Dad? Parking the car. He's bringing the surprise. Before I could ask what surprise, Krista burst through the door. The hotel chain executives are on their way. Everything ready in the kitchen? Staff's prepped, menus set, and I triple-checked every detail, I assured her. That's my girl. My father appeared, carrying a familiar wooden box. But first, I think we need this. I recognized it immediately. Mom's old recipe box. Dad, you still have that? Found it while cleaning out the house. He set it on the counter. Thought it might belong here now. Craig arrived with his parents in tow. Paul looked around appreciatively. This is impressive, Martina. Very impressive. Thank you. I meant it sincerely. His approval, unlike Linda's, felt genuine and earned. The first guests are arriving, Alyssa called from the door. What followed was a whirlwind of introductions, presentations, and carefully crafted appetizers. I moved through the crowd, discussing menu options with hotel executives, demonstrating techniques in the show kitchen, watching Alyssa confidently handle the business discussions. During a quiet moment, I opened Mom's recipe box. Inside, beneath her handwritten cards, lay a newspaper clipping I'd never seen before. It was an article about her small catering business, dated just before she died. She was so proud of that article, Dad said, appearing beside me. She always said you'd inherit her cooking talent. Why didn't you show me this before? He sighed. Linda, she said it would only encourage unrealistic dreams. I should have stood up to her then. We can't change the past, Dad. No, but we can learn from it. He pulled out an envelope. "Which is why I want you to have this." Inside was a deed, the building we were standing in, now officially in my name. "Dad, we agreed this would be an investment. And it is. In you. In us." He gestured around the room. "Look what you've built, Martina. Not just a business, but a family. A real one." Across the room, Craig was deep in conversation with his father about expanding our corporate client base. Alyssa was charming potential clients with her detailed business projections. Krista was leading a kitchen tour, her pride in our work evident in every word. "Speaking of family," Dad continued, "there's something else you should know. The DA called this morning. Linda took a plea deal." My hands stilled on Mom's recipe box. "How long?" 5 years, plus mandatory counseling and restitution payments. He touched my shoulder. "Are you okay?" Before I could answer, the hotel chain's CEO approached. "Martina, this is extraordinary. We'd like to discuss expanding our contract to include all our West Coast properties." As I turned to respond, I caught a glimpse of myself in the polished steel of the kitchen wall, standing tall, confident, no longer seeking approval from shadows. "I'd be happy to discuss that," I said. "But first, let me show you something special." I pulled out Mom's recipe for her famous orange lavender macarons. "This is where it all started. Would you like to see how they're made?" For the next hour, I demonstrated the delicate process, sharing stories of Mom's wisdom, of lessons learned, of dreams rebuilt. The executives watched, entranced, as I transformed simple ingredients into something magical. "You know," the CEO said, sampling a finished macaron, "we've been looking for a signature dessert for our hotels, something unique, with a story behind it." "Every great recipe has a story," I replied, thinking of Mom's box, of Dad's support, of the family we'd rebuilt from Linda's ashes. Later, as the successful event wound down, Craig found me in the kitchen. "The hotel chain signed the expanded contract," he announced, "and Paul's firm wants us to cater their National Partners Conference." "We did it," I said softly. "No," he corrected, wrapping his arms around me. "You did it, by being exactly who you are." I looked around at our new space, at Mom's recipe box proudly displayed, at Alyssa calculating tomorrow's prep lists, at Dad beaming with genuine pride, at Krista directing cleanup with cheerful efficiency. "Ready to lock up?" Craig asked. "Actually," I said, pulling out Mom's recipe box, "I thought we might stay a bit longer. There's this chocolate souffle recipe I've been wanting to try." "At this hour?" I smiled, remembering Mom's words scribbled in the margins. The best recipes, like the best lives, are made with love, courage, and just a hint of rebellion. "Why not? We've got time, family, and a kitchen full of possibilities." Craig grinned, reaching for an apron. "Lead the way, chef." And in that moment, surrounded by the people I loved in the space we'd built together, I knew that this was the success Linda could never understand. This was home.
The phone buzzed against my desk, my mother's name flashing across the screen for the first time in 3 years. I let it ring, watching until the call ended, then waited for the inevitable voicemail notification. Her voice crackled through the speaker, strained and desperate in a way I'd never heard before. "Isabel, we need to talk. It's about the family. Please call me back. I'm Isabel, the daughter who was never good enough, the one who couldn't measure up to perfect Makey, my older brother who could do no wrong. At least that's who I was until I walked away from it all 5 years ago." "Everything okay?" Ryder poked his head into my office, his usual confident smile fading as he noticed my expression. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse, my mother called." I turned my phone screen toward him. "First time since I left." "Shit." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "What did she want?" "Family emergency, apparently." I played the voicemail again, watching Ryder's face as he listened. Funny how emergencies make people remember the children they wrote off. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from my father. "Please call your mother, it's important." "You going to call back?" Ryder leaned against my desk, arms crossed. I stared at the message thread with my mother. Years of unread holiday messages and guilt-laden texts filling the screen. I should probably find out if someone's dying at least. With trembling fingers, I hit the call button. She answered on the first ring. "Isabel?" Oh, thank goodness. Her voice wavered. We've been trying to reach you. I noticed. What's wrong? It's complicated. We're in trouble, sweetheart. The business, the house, everything. Meki, She choked back a sob. We need help. Of course. My golden boy brother had finally screwed up badly enough that they needed the backup plan. Me. What did he do? He made some investments, bad ones. Used the business as collateral without telling your father. We're going to lose everything. I closed my eyes, remembering the day I'd tried to warn them about Maki's gambling. They'd dismissed me as jealous, bitter, trying to tarnish their perfect son's reputation. How much? 3 million. She paused. We know you're doing well with your company. The news articles, the awards. We've followed everything. Now you have. The words came out sharper than I intended. Funny, I don't remember you being interested in my success when I was starting out. Isabel, please. We're your family. Family? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Was I family when you told me I'd never amount to anything? When you called me the useless daughter at Aunt Sarah's wedding? When you chose Maki over me every single time? Silence stretched between us. Ryder placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. We were wrong, she whispered. I know that now, but please, we need you. No, Mother. You need my money. There's a difference. I took a deep breath. I'll think about it. That's all I can offer right now. I hung up before she could respond, dropping my head into my hands. You okay? Ryder asked quietly. They're broke. Maki gambled away the family business. I looked up at him. $3 million worth of mistakes, and they want me to clean it up. Are you going to? I stood up, walking to the window overlooking the city skyline. 5 years ago, I'd arrived here with nothing but determination and spite. Now I had everything they said I couldn't achieve. Success, respect, independence. You know what the worst part is? I turned back to Ryder. Part of me wants to help, just to prove I'm better than they were. But another part wants to let them crash and burn. He finished for me. Is that terrible? After what they put you through, I'd say it's human. My phone buzzed again. Maki this time. I declined the call. What are you going to do? Ryder asked. I thought about the scared little girl I used to be, always trying to prove herself worthy of love that should have been unconditional. About the woman I'd become, strong enough to build something from nothing. I'm going to show them exactly who their useless daughter turned out to be. I smiled, an idea forming. But not by writing a check. They need to see what real success looks like, and what it costs. Ryder grinned. Now that sounds like the Isabel I know. I picked up my phone, typing a quick message to my mother. I'll be home next week. We'll talk then. The response was immediate. Thank you, sweetheart. We knew we could count on you. They had no idea what was coming. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about making others suffer. It's about showing them exactly what they missed out on. The memory hit me as I packed my suitcase. 16-year-old me, standing in our family kitchen, clutching my acceptance letter to business school. Full scholarship? Maki had snatched the letter from my hands, scanning it with narrowed eyes. Must be some mistake, or they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel this year. Give it back. I'd reached for the letter, but he held it above his head, using his height advantage against me like always. Maki, stop teasing your sister, Mom had said, but she was smiling. She always smiled at his teasing. I'm not teasing. I'm being realistic. He dropped the letter onto the counter. Business school? Please. You can barely handle basic math. Remember when Dad tried to teach you about the family business? I did remember. I'd been 14, eager to learn, but every mistake was met with sighs and head shakes. Meanwhile, Maki got private lessons in the office, groomed to take over someday. My phone buzzed, jolting me back to the present. It was Daria. Tell me you're not seriously going back there, she said when I answered. I have to. I zipped up my suitcase. You didn't hear my mother's voice, Daria. They're desperate. Good. Let them be desperate. Remember your high school graduation? I winced. How could I forget? While Maki got a new car for his graduation, I got a lecture about being practical and considering community college instead of wasting time at business school. This isn't about revenge, I said, though part of me knew that was a lie. Bullshit. I was there, remember? I saw what they did to you. The memory shifted to another scene. My first business plan competition in college. I'd invited my family, reserved seats in the front row. They never showed up. Makey had a golf tournament that day. I found my old diary while packing. I told Daria, "Want to hear something funny? The day before I left for college, I overheard Mom and Dad talking about taking out a second mortgage to fund Makey's startup idea. The one that failed in 3 months? That's the one. $200,000 down the drain." I sat on my bed, fingering the worn pages of the diary. Meanwhile, I was working 2 jobs to buy my own textbooks. And now they want your money. Daria's voice dripped with disdain. "Please tell me you're not giving it to them." "No." I stood up, walking to my home office. On the wall hung my first business license, framed next to the newspaper article about my company's first major success. I'm going to give them something better. The truth. What does that mean? It means I'm going to show them exactly what their useless daughter built while they were busy enabling their perfect son. A text from Meki lit up my phone. "Hey sis, heard you're coming home. We should talk before you see Mom and Dad." "Is that him?" Daria asked when I went quiet. "Yeah, probably wants to convince me to bail them out before I find out exactly how bad things are." I typed back a quick, "We'll see" to Makey. "Remember when he told you your first business would fail within a month?" I laughed. Right before he asked to borrow $5,000 for his foolproof investment scheme. Did he ever pay that back? What do you think? My doorbell rang. "Ryder, right on time for our pre-trip strategy session." "Daria, I have to go. Ryder's here. Just be careful, okay? Don't let them pull you back into their games." I opened the door to find Ryder holding 2 coffee cups and a folder. "Found something interesting," he said, handing me one of the coffees. "Did some digging into your family's business finances?" "How bad is it?" He spread documents across my dining table. "Worse than they're telling you. Makey didn't just make bad investments. He embezzled, used company funds for personal expenses, took out loans using business assets as collateral without board approval. Criminal charges? Not yet, but it's heading that way if someone doesn't intervene." I picked up one of the documents, a loan application with a forged signature, my father's signature. They really think I'm going to swoop in and fix this, don't they? Ryder nodded. "Question is, what are you actually going to do?" I looked at my packed suitcase, then at the wall of achievements they'd never acknowledged. I'm going to make them face every mistake, every dismissal, every time they chose him over me. I squared my shoulders. And then I'm going to walk away and let them live with the consequences of their choices. "That's my girl," Ryder grinned. "Need backup?" "Always." I picked up my suitcase. Time to show them who their useless daughter really is. The familiar streets of my hometown felt smaller now, each turn bringing back memories I'd tried to forget. I pulled into the coffee shop where I'd worked during high school, now transformed into a sleek cafe. A perfect place for my first meeting with Meki. He was already there, occupying the corner table like he owned it. Same confident posture, same expensive watch, but his eyes held a desperation I'd never seen before. "Little sister." He stood to hug me. I stepped back. "Let's skip the pretense, Makey. What do you want?" His smile faltered as we sat down. "Can't I just want to see my sister?" After 3 years of silence, try again. A waitress approached. I ordered black coffee. Meki asked for some complicated specialty drink that wasn't even on the menu, then acted surprised when they couldn't make it. "Things are complicated," he finally said, settling for regular coffee. "Mom probably told you about the business." "She told me you made some bad investments. Ryder told me the truth." His face darkened at Ryder's name. "Your business partner should keep his nose out of family matters." "Family matters?" I laughed. "Like when you forged Dad's signature on those loans?" Coffee forgotten, Makey leaned forward. "Listen, I can explain everything. I had a plan. The investments were solid, but the market... Save it." I pulled out my phone, showing him the documentation Ryder had gathered. "Casino receipts? Luxury car leases? That was your solid investment plan?" "I was networking, building relationships with clients. You wouldn't understand. You've always been so small-minded about these things." "Small-minded." I felt my voice rising. "I built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing while you were gambling away our parents' retirement." An elderly couple at the next table looked over. I lowered my voice. How much did you really lose, Makey? He wouldn't meet my eyes. 4.2 million. Jesus Christ. I sat back, stunned. Does Dad know? Not everything. Look, I can fix this. I just need some capital to what? Double down? Hit the tables again? I have connections, he insisted. One good deal could turn everything around. But I need your help. Just a small loan, say $500,000. I'll pay you back double within 6 months. The same confident smile he'd always used to get his way. It probably still worked on our parents. No. His smile vanished. What? I said no. I'm not giving you money. Come on, Isabel, we're family. You can't just… Family? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Where was family when I needed help with college? When I was working 60-hour weeks to start my business? When I invited you all to my company's launch party and you didn't show because you had a golf game? That's not fair. I was networking, building relationships. I grabbed my purse. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, you're going to tell Mom and Dad everything. Every loan, every forged signature, every penny you stole, or I will. He grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. You wouldn't dare. I yanked free. Try me. I'm not that scared little girl anymore, Meki. You can't bully me into submission. You think you're so much better than me now? He stood towering over me like he used to. With your fancy company and your business partner, I made one mistake. One mistake? You destroyed our family's legacy. The business Dad spent 30 years building. Gone because you couldn't admit you had a problem. People were definitely staring now. Meki's face had turned red. You know what? His voice was low, dangerous. Maybe if Mom and Dad had given you the business instead of me, none of this would have happened. Is that what you want to hear? That you were right all along? What I want, I said quietly, is for you to face what you've done. No more manipulation, no more lies. My phone buzzed, a text from Ryder. All set for tomorrow's meeting with your parents. Documents ready. Tomorrow at noon, I told Meki. Dad's office. Either you tell them or I will. He called after me as I walked away, but I didn't turn back. Outside, I leaned against my car, hands shaking as I dialed Ryder's number. How'd it go? He asked. 4.2 million, Ryder. He lost $4.2 million. Jesus, that's more than we thought. He wanted me to loan him $500,000 more, said he could double it in 6 months. Ryder was quiet for a moment. You okay? I watched through the window as Meki ordered another coffee, his hands shaking as he reached for his wallet. Yeah, I said. For the first time in my life, I think I am. Dad's office still smelled like leather and coffee, but the usual bustle of employees was gone. Empty desks stretched across the floor, personal items already cleared out. My heels clicked against the hardwood as I made my way to the conference room. Isabel! Mom rushed to hug me. I kept my arms at my sides. Oh, sweetheart, thank you for coming. Dad stood by the window, looking older than I remembered. He turned, managing a weak smile. You look well. Success does that. I set my briefcase on the table. Where's Meki? Running late, Mom said quickly. Traffic, you know how it is. No. I checked my watch. He's not coming, is he? The silence answered my question. I pulled out my laptop and the documents Ryder had prepared. Well then, I guess I'll start. Start what? Dad asked, finally taking a seat. Isabel, if this is about the loan… This isn't about a loan. I connected my laptop to the projector. This is about the truth. The first slide appeared, a breakdown of the company's finances over the past 3 years. Red numbers dominated the screen. What is this? Mom's voice trembled. This is what your perfect son did to the family business. I clicked through the slides. Unauthorized loans, forged signatures, casino debts paid with company funds. Dad's face went pale. That's not possible. Meki wouldn't… Here's his signature on a loan for $800,000. Click. Here's your forged signature on another for $1.2 million. Click. And here's the casino's record of his losses over the past 18 months. Mom started crying. Dad just stared at the screen. The total damage, I continued, is $4.2 million. Not the $3 million he told you about. And that's not counting the legal implications of the fraud. Why are you doing this? Mom whispered. We asked for help, not this. Because you need to see what your favoritism created. I turned off the projector. You gave him everything: the business, the trust fund, your unconditional support, and he repaid you by destroying it all. We made mistakes, Dad admitted quietly. With both of you. No. I shook my head. You made choices. Every time you praised his mediocrity while ignoring my achievements. Every time you funded his failures while I worked my way through college. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices. The door opened. Mickey stood there, tie askew, eyes bloodshot. Sorry I'm late, he mumbled. Just in time, I said. I was just showing Mom and Dad your creative accounting. He slumped into a chair. I was going to tell them. When? After you got another loan to gamble away? Mickey, Dad's voice was barely audible. Is this true? All of it? Mickey nodded, staring at the table. The investors are pulling out, I continued. The bank is calling in the loans. You have maybe 2 weeks before they force a liquidation. There must be something we can do, Mom pleaded. Isabel, your company is not your safety net. I closed my laptop. I'm not here to save the business. Then why are you here? Mickey demanded. To gloat? I'm here because you need to understand something. I stood up, looking at each of them. Success isn't about who has the most natural talent, or who gets the most support, or who your parents believe in more. It's about what you do with what you have. I pulled out one final document, my company's latest valuation report. My company is worth $30 million. I built it while you were all telling me I'd never amount to anything, and I did it without stealing, lying, or gambling away other people's futures. So you're just going to let us lose everything? Mickey asked. Your own family? No, I'm going to let you face the consequences of your actions. All of you. I gathered my things. But I will make you an offer. They leaned forward eagerly. I'll help you negotiate with the bank, help you salvage what's left of your reputation, but only if you agree to my terms. Anything, Mom said quickly. Mickey goes to addiction counseling. Dad, you step down and let a professional management team handle the restructuring. And Mom, I met her eyes. You acknowledge, publicly, at the next family gathering, exactly how you treated me all these years. The room was silent except for Mom's quiet sobs. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them. And if we don't, Mickey asked, then you can explain to the board and the police where all that money went. I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the handle. You have until tomorrow to decide. Call me when you're ready to face reality. The sound of my heels echoed through the empty office as I walked away, leaving them to sit with their choices. I was having coffee at my old high school hangout when Milena walked in. 5 years hadn't changed her much. Same perfectly styled hair, same designer handbag. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Isabel, oh my God. She rushed over, arms outstretched. I heard you were back in town. Milena. I didn't stand for the hug. Let me guess. Mickey told you? Her smile faltered slightly. Actually, yes. We've been seeing each other. Of course they had. My brother's ex-best friend's girlfriend, now his current flame. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sit, I gestured to the empty chair. I'm sure you have plenty to tell me. She settled in, fidgeting with her coffee cup. Look, about Mickey, save it. I already know everything. No, you don't. She glanced around before leaning closer. I'm the one who sent the anonymous tip to the board about the missing money. That got my attention. What? I saw the receipts, Isabel. The casino visits, the wire transfers. He was spiraling and nobody would listen to me. She pulled out her phone, showing me texts from Mickey. He promised he'd stop, but he didn't. He said he had a system, that he just needed one big win to fix everything. She wiped away a tear. I tried to help him, but he just kept taking more and more. The waitress brought more coffee. I studied Milena's face, looking for any sign of deception. Why are you telling me this? Because I remember how they treated you, how we all treated you. She reached for my hand. I pulled back. I was there when your mom told everyone not to attend your business launch, said it would only encourage your delusions of grandeur. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. We've discussed your terms. Please come to the house tonight. They're meeting tonight, aren't they? Milena asked. To discuss your offer? I looked up sharply. How do you know about that? Makey called me after your meeting. He was upset. She hesitated. He's not planning to accept your terms, Isabel. He thinks he can find another way. Another way to what? Steal more money? He mentioned something about offshore accounts, private investors. She pulled out a USB drive. That's why I brought you these. Bank statements, emails, everything I could find. I stared at the drive. Why now, Milena? Why help me after all these years? Because I was wrong. We all were. She stood up, gathering her things. And because someone needs to stop him before he hurts more people. As she turned to leave, I called after her. Does he know you're here? No, and he can't know. Please. Her eyes were pleading. Just be careful tonight. He's not the same person we grew up with. After she left, I plugged the drive into my laptop. Dozens of files appeared. Correspondence with shady investment firms, screenshots of gambling debts, and something that made my blood run cold. A draft email to my company's board of directors, full of fabricated allegations about my business practices. I called Ryder immediately. He's planning to sabotage my company, I said when he answered, trying to destroy my reputation before I can expose him. Jesus. Ryder paused. Want me to come over there? No, but have our lawyers ready, and call security. Make sure Mickey can't access our building. Already done. What about tonight? I looked at the time. 2 hours until the family meeting. I'm going, but first, I need to make a stop. The bank manager was expecting me. I'd called ahead. Ms. Walker? He smiled, shaking my hand. I understand you want to discuss your brother's accounts. Actually, I placed Milena's USB drive on his desk. I want to discuss fraud prevention. An hour later, I pulled up to my parents' house. Makey's car was already there, along with Dad's. Through the window, I could see them in the living room, heads bent together in discussion. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Milena. Whatever happens tonight, remember you're not the one who needs to be ashamed. I grabbed my briefcase and walked to the door. Before I could knock, it swung open. Mom stood there, eyes red from crying. Isabel, she said softly, please come in. We need to talk. Behind her, Makey sat in Dad's armchair, a familiar smirk playing on his lips. He thought he had a plan. He thought he could outmaneuver me one last time. He had no idea what was coming. I stepped inside, ready for the final confrontation. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought in the places we once called home. Before we start, I said, setting my briefcase on the coffee table, I had an interesting conversation with the bank today. Makey's smirk faltered slightly. We've discussed your terms, Mom interrupted, perched nervously on the edge of the sofa. And we think, no, let's hear what the bank had to say. Makey leaned forward, trying to maintain his composure. I'm sure it was fascinating. Oh, it was. I pulled out several documents, especially the part about the second set of books you've been keeping. The offshore accounts, the shell companies. Dad's head snapped up. What? Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I spread the papers across the table. Or did you think you could blackmail me into silence with those fake allegations you were planning to send to my board? Mom gasped. Makey's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. Really? Should we call Milena? I'm sure she'd be happy to explain. He stood up so quickly his chair tipped over. You talked to Milena? She showed me everything, Makey. The gambling debts, the fraudulent accounts, the plans to frame me for embezzlement if I didn't help you cover it up. You're lying. Am I? I pulled out my phone, playing a recording. Makey's voice discussing offshore transfers with someone named Marcus. Dad put his head in his hands. Mom started crying again. It's not what it sounds like, Makey insisted. I was trying to save the company. By stealing from it, by planning to destroy my reputation. I turned to our parents. Still think he deserves another chance? We could. Mom looked desperately between us. We could find a way to fix this, as a family. There's nothing to fix. I stood up. The bank has frozen all accounts pending investigation. The board has been notified and the police. I checked my watch. Should be here any minute. You called the police? Mom shrieked. On your own brother? No, Mom. The bank called the police on a criminal who happened to be my brother. Makey lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You can't do this to me. Let go of me. My voice was steel. Or what? You'll call your precious Ryder? Have him save you again? Dad finally stood up. Makey, let her go. Don't you see what she's doing? Makey's grip tightened. She's destroying this family. No. I yanked free. You did that all by yourself. Blue lights flashed outside. Mom ran to the window. Please, she begged. Isabel, stop this. We can work something out. Like you worked it out when I needed you? When I begged for support, for acknowledgement, for just one moment of the attention you showered on him? We made mistakes. No, I cut her off. You made choices, and now you're all going to live with them. The doorbell rang. 2 police officers stood outside. Mr. Makey Walker? One called through the door. Makey looked wildly around the room like a trapped animal. Dad, please. Dad just shook his head, tears in his eyes. I'll destroy you, Makey hissed at me. Everything you've built will still be standing long after you're gone. I opened the door. Officers, he's in here. Everything happened quickly after that. The handcuffs, the rights being read, Mom's hysterical crying, Dad's silent tears. As they led Makey out, he turned back one last time. You think this makes you better than me? No, I met his eyes. I always was better than you. They just couldn't see it. After the police car pulled away, I gathered my things. What happens now? Dad asked quietly. Now? The company goes into receivership. You'll probably lose the house, your reputation. I shrugged. Well, that's already gone. And you? Mom's voice was small. Will you help us? I paused at the door. My offer stands. Professional management team. Public acknowledgement of how you treated me. And Makey gets help. Real help. In prison or out. That's it? After everything we've done for you? I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Everything you've done for me? You mean like telling me I was worthless? Like choosing him over me at every turn? Like making me feel like I didn't deserve to exist in this family? They stood there, finally seeing me. Really seeing me, for the first time. I'll have my lawyers contact you tomorrow about the restructuring. I opened the door. Goodbye, Mom, Dad. Isabel, Dad called after me. I'm sorry, for everything. I didn't turn around. I know, but sorry isn't enough anymore. The door closed behind me with a final click, leaving them alone with the wreckage of their choices. 3 days after Makey's arrest, Mom called a family meeting at Aunt Sarah's house. The same house where, years ago, she'd first called me the useless daughter. Fitting, really. Ryder pulled up to the curb. You sure you want to do this? No. I smoothed my dress. But it's time. The living room was packed with relatives. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all the people who'd witnessed my humiliation over the years. They fell silent as I walked in. Isabel. Aunt Sarah hugged me awkwardly. We've all heard, the news about how my brother committed fraud, or about how I turned him in. More uncomfortable silence. Mom stood up from her spot on the couch. I called everyone here because, her voice cracked, because we owe you an apology, Isabel, all of us. Mom, no, let me finish. She squared her shoulders. For years, we treated you like you were less than Makey. We dismissed your dreams, belittled your achievements, made you feel unwelcome in your own family. Uncle Robert shifted in his chair. Hallie, maybe this isn't the place. This is exactly the place, Dad cut in. This is where it started, isn't it? At that dinner when we all laughed at Isabel's business plans? I remembered that night. I'd presented my first business concept to the family, hoping for support. Instead, they'd turned it into a joke, passing around my carefully prepared proposal like it was a comedy script. We were wrong, Mom continued. So terribly wrong. While we were praising Makey's failures, you were building something extraordinary, and we were too blind to see it. Too proud, Aunt Sarah corrected. We were too proud to admit we'd backed the wrong horse. I'm not here for apologies, I said, my voice steady. I'm here to set things straight. I pulled out my phone, pulling up the family group chat. Remember this thread from 3 years ago, when I invited everyone to my company's launch party? I started scrolling. 14 people said they were too busy. 8 didn't bother responding. Only Daria showed up. We didn't think, Uncle Robert started. That it would succeed? I finished. Or that it mattered. Well, let me show you what you missed. I connected my phone to the TV, starting a slideshow. Pictures of my company's growth. news articles about our success, awards ceremonies they'd never attended. While you were all celebrating Makey's latest venture, I was building this. While you were covering up his mistakes, I was creating jobs, real jobs for real people. The photos continued. My first office, the team growing, the new headquarters. Last week, before all this happened, we closed a deal worth $15 million. I let that sink in. That's 5 times what Makey lost, what your perfect son gambled away. Mom was crying openly now. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. But this isn't about money, I continued. It's about respect, about family, about choosing to see only what you wanted to see instead of what was really there. What do you want from us? Aunt Sarah asked quietly. Nothing. Not anymore. I turned off the TV. I'm not here for revenge or redemption. I'm here to show you exactly what you missed out on, what you threw away because you couldn't see past your own prejudices. Please, Mom stepped forward. Give us a chance to make it right. Make it right? I laughed. You can't make this right. You can't undo years of damage with one public apology. Then why are you here? Uncle Robert demanded. Because someone needs to say it. I looked around the room. Your golden boy is a fraud. Your perfect son is a criminal. And your useless daughter? She's the only one who can help you pick up the pieces. The silence was deafening. My lawyers will handle the restructuring of the company. Dad, you'll step down next week. A professional team will take over. I gathered my things. And Makey will get the help he needs. In prison. And us? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. What about us? I paused at the door, looking back at my family. Really looking at them. The proud aunts and uncles who'd dismissed me. The cousins who'd followed Makey's lead in mocking my dreams. The parents who'd failed to see what was right in front of them. That's up to you. I opened the door. But know this. I'm done trying to prove myself to people who never wanted to see me succeed in the first place. Ryder was waiting outside. How'd it go? Exactly as expected. I got into the car. Take me home. As we drove away, I watched my family through the rearview mirror, still gathered in Aunt Sarah's living room, finally facing the truth about who they'd chosen to believe in, and who they'd chosen to ignore. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about walking away and letting people live with the consequences of their choices. The knock on my office door came just as I was finishing a conference call. Daria poked her head in. Someone here to see you, she said, her expression unreadable. It's Mekki. I looked up sharply. Here? How did he? Released this morning. She stepped aside, revealing my brother in the doorway. He looked different, thinner. The designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a button-down shirt, the arrogance gone from his stance. Hey, sis. His voice was quiet. Got a minute? I nodded to Daria. She left, closing the door behind her. Nice office, Mekki said, looking around. Better than Dad's old one. What do you want? He sat down, hands clasped in his lap. I've been in therapy, real therapy, not just the court-mandated stuff. Good for you. I learned something interesting. He met my eyes. About why I did what I did. Why I couldn't stand to see you succeed. Mekki, please, let me finish. He pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. I wrote this in therapy. Must have rewritten it 50 times. I took the letter but didn't open it. I was jealous, he continued. Not of your success, of your strength. You built something real, something lasting. All I did was pretend to be what everyone wanted me to be. You had every advantage, I said. Every opportunity. I know. And I wasted them all trying to live up to an image I couldn't maintain. He gestured to the letter. Read it, please. I unfolded the paper. His handwriting was different, less flashy, more honest somehow. Dear Isabel, I read aloud. I'm sorry. Not just for the money or the lies or the attempted blackmail. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel small to make myself feel big. For every dream I mocked because I was afraid you'd achieve it. For every moment I stole from you because I couldn't stand in my own spotlight. My voice cracked. I stopped reading. Keep going, he said softly. You were always the strong one, I continued reading. The brave one. While I was taking shortcuts and looking for easy wins, you were doing the real work, building something meaningful. I didn't hate you for being less than me, I hated you for being more than I could ever be. I set the letter down. Why are you really here, Mickey? Because I owe you more than an apology. He pulled out another document. This is my resignation from the family business. Complete divestment of my shares. I'm signing everything over to the restructuring team. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He placed the document on my desk. It's part of making amends. Real amends, not just words. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Is he there? They don't know you're here, do they? He shook his head. I needed to do this on my own. No safety net, no family pressure, just me. Finally being honest. I studied his face, looking for any trace of the old manipulation. Found none. What will you do now? Start over. Entry-level job at a friend's company, small apartment, learning to live with who I am, not who everyone wanted me to be. He stood up. I don't expect forgiveness, Isabel. I just needed you to know that I see you now. Really see you. As he turned to leave, I called out, Mickey? He paused. That friend's company, they need any investment advice? A small, genuine smile, so different from his old smirk. No, I'm working in their mailroom, learning what real work feels like. After he left, Ryder came in. Everything okay? I handed him Mickey's letter and resignation. What do you think? He read them carefully. Seems genuine. Prison changes people. Or maybe it just shows them who they really are. I picked up my phone, typing a response to Mom. He's gone, but he's okay. You think he'll make it? Ryder asked. I looked out my office window at Mickey, walking down the street, head high but shoulders relaxed. No pretense, no performance. Just a man finally learning to stand on his own. Yeah, I said. I think he will. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mickey. Thank you. Not for the money you didn't give me, but for the wake-up call I needed. You were always the best of us. I smiled, typing back, prove it. Not to me, to yourself. Sometimes redemption doesn't come in grand gestures or public apologies. Sometimes it comes in quiet moments of truth, in the courage to start over, in the strength to face who you really are. And sometimes, just sometimes, it comes in letting go of who you were supposed to become who you were meant to be all along.
I stared at the custom-made Welcome Baby banner, wondering if the rose gold lettering was a mistake. June had always preferred simple designs, but Mother insisted on elevating everything these days. The party planner's invoice in my hand reminded me why I should have said no to organizing this baby shower in the first place. I'm Cora, and I've spent the last 15 years trying to prove that career success and family devotion aren't mutually exclusive. Spoiler alert, my mother still doesn't buy it. The caterer called, Kaya said, appearing beside me with her clipboard. They're running 20 minutes late. Of course they are. I checked my watch. Another work email needed attention, but it could wait. Did you confirm the flower arrangements? All set, but your mom called again. She wants to know if we can rearrange the seating chart to put June's college friends closer to the front. I closed my eyes, counting to 10. The chart we finalized 3 days ago. The one she approved? The very same. Kaya squeezed my shoulder. Want me to tell her no? I'll handle it. I pulled out my phone, dialing Mother's number. 1 ring, 2 rings. Cora, darling. Mother's voice dripped honey, never a good sign. I was just thinking about the seating. Mother, we can't change it now. The place cards are printed and the tables are set. But June specifically requested. June approved the arrangement last week. I watched the venue staff arrange crystal centerpieces that cost more than my first car. Remember, during the family dinner. Oh, you mean the dinner you left early for that conference call? There it was. The signature Aurora Norris guilt trip, right on schedule. That call secured the Thompson account, I said, keeping my voice level. It's helping pay for this shower you're trying to micromanage. Always about work with you, isn't it? She sighed dramatically. Your sister is having a baby, Cora. A baby. Would it kill you to focus on family for once? The venue manager waved frantically from across the room. Another fire to extinguish. Mother, I need to go. The seating stays as is. I hung up before she could protest. Problems? Kaya asked, already knowing the answer. Just the usual, mother being mother. I straightened my blazer. What's wrong now? The dessert table's lighting isn't ethereal enough, apparently. Kaya rolled her eyes. The manager's having a meltdown. As we walked over, my phone buzzed. June's text lit up the screen. Mom says you're being difficult about the seating. Why can't you just help make my day perfect? Perfect, like the straight A's that were never good enough. Like the promotion that meant nothing because I missed Sunday dinner. Like this $40,000 baby shower that still somehow fell short. The lights are fine, I told the manager firmly. If anything, we'll adjust the camera settings for photos. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Herbert, the family lawyer. Cora, your mother's on my other line about the venue contract. Something about last-minute changes. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Tell her any changes now will incur extra charges. Significant ones. She says money isn't an issue. Of course not. It's not her money. I watched another delivery arrive. Hand-painted party favors from June's favorite artist. Just hold her off, please. We're hours away from the event. Will do. And Cora. Herbert paused. You're doing a wonderful job. Don't let anyone tell you differently. I ended the call, feeling a familiar ache in my chest. The same ache I felt at 12, when Mother praised June's mediocre piano recital, but missed my debate championship. The same twist when she gushed about June's art major while dismissing my business degree as cold and calculating. Hey, Kaya's voice pulled me back. You okay? Fine. I straightened the nearest place card. Just wondering why I keep trying to prove myself to people who've already made up their minds about me. Because you're Cora, she said simply. You never give up, even when you should. The caterers finally arrived, creating a welcome distraction. As I directed them to the kitchen, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Aunt Maeve. Your mother's on the warpath. Brace yourself, dear. And remember, you're worth more than their approval. I looked around the perfectly decorated venue, at the 1,000 little details I'd orchestrated while juggling client meetings and project deadlines. In 4 hours, this room would fill with guests, and my sister would have her perfect baby shower, and I would smile and nod and pretend their words didn't cut like always, because that's what good daughters do, right? The baby shower was in full swing when my phone vibrated for the 10th time. A client crisis needed immediate attention. I slipped behind a decorative screen, trying to keep my voice down. Yes, I understand the urgency, I whispered. I can review the contract in 20 minutes. Cora, Mother's voice, cut through the party chatter. What are you doing back there? I ended the call quickly. Just checking on the gift arrangements, Mother. Always with that phone. She grabbed my arm, steering me toward the crowd. Your sister is about to open presents. Surely your precious work can wait. June sat in the ornate chair I'd specially ordered, surrounded by cooing guests. Her pregnancy glow was amplified by the professional lighting I'd arranged. Not that anyone would mention that detail. There you are. June's smile didn't reach her eyes. I was starting to think you'd disappeared. Just managing some details. I took my designated seat beside her, noting how Mother hovered nearby like a watchful hawk. Details, details. Mother sighed loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. That's all Cora thinks about these days. Numbers and contracts instead of family. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. I felt my cheeks burn, but maintained my smile. Let's focus on the presents, shall we? June opened gift after gift. Each one met with appropriate oohs and ahs. I checked my phone discreetly. 3 missed calls from the client. Oh, this one's from Cora, June announced, lifting an elegantly wrapped package. My stomach knotted. I'd spent weeks hunting down the vintage silver rattle, identical to the one in our grandmother's baby photos. June tore through the paper, revealing the velvet box. Oh, it's nice. It's just like Grandma Margaret's, I explained quickly. Remember how she always told us about? Speaking of remembering, Mother interrupted. Remember when Cora missed June's college graduation because of a crucial meeting? The room went silent. June's husband Franklin shifted in his seat, looking anywhere but at me. "Mother, that was years ago," I said quietly, "and I flew in the next day. And now here we are," Mother continued, as if I hadn't spoken, "at June's baby shower, and she can't even put her phone down for an hour." "Aurora," Aunt Maeve warned from across the room. But Mother was on a roll. "Do you know who arranged this entire shower?" June joined in, her voice thick with hormonal tears. "Our mother did, while you were too busy with your important career to help." I stared at her, stunned. "June, I literally planned every—" "Oh sure," she sniffled. "You wrote some checks, threw money at it like you do with everything. But where were you for the actual planning? The late-night calls about color schemes? The menu tastings?" "I was on those calls." My voice rose despite my efforts. "I scheduled them around your timeline." "Ladies," Franklin tried to intervene, but Mother shot him a look that could freeze hell. "Your sister's having a baby," Mother announced to the room at large. "A miracle, a new life. But I suppose that's not as important as whatever's on that phone of yours." My phone buzzed again. The client was now threatening to pull their account. "I need to take this," I said, standing up. "It's important." "More important than family," June's voice cracked. "More important than me." The room was dead silent now, every guest witnessing my public execution. "You know what?" I grabbed my purse. "Yes, right now, this call is more important. Because unlike this shower, which I planned, paid for, and am apparently getting zero credit for, this call actually matters to people who value my time and effort." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mother's face turned purple. "How dare you?" she sputtered. "After everything we've done for you." "Everything you've done for me," I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Please, enlighten me. Was it the constant criticism, the comparison to June, the guilt trips?" "Cora," Kaya peered at my elbow. "Maybe we should step outside." "No need." I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of boardroom confidence I possessed. "I'm leaving. Enjoy the shower, June. The venue's paid through 7. Try not to let Mother convince you I ruined this too." I turned on my heel, walking steadily toward the exit, despite the trembling in my legs. Behind me, I heard Mother's theatrical sobs and June's hiccuping tears. Just before the door closed, I heard Aunt Maeve's clear voice. "Well, Aurora, I hope you're satisfied. You've finally done it." I made it to my car before the tears came. But as I sat there, watching the venue staff scurry around through the windows, a strange calm settled over me. My phone buzzed again, but this time, instead of anxiety, I felt something else stirring in my chest. Resolve. I sat in my car for exactly 3 minutes before making the call. My hands had stopped shaking, replaced by an eerie steadiness I usually reserved for hostile takeovers. "Herbert, it's Cora. Remember that contingency plan we discussed? The one you said you'd never use?" He sounded concerned. "What happened in there?" "They finally pushed too far. I watched another delivery van arrive at the venue. I need you to execute Plan B, all of it." "Cora," he hesitated. "Are you sure? This will—" "They think I just write checks, Herbert. Let's show them exactly what that means." After hanging up, I called the venue manager. "Sarah, yes, about those payment arrangements we discussed." "Of course, Ms. Norris. Everything's set up as requested. Should I?" "Yes. Implement all changes effective immediately." My phone lit up with a text from Kaya. "Holy shit, they're still going at it. June's crying about how you abandoned her special day. Your mom's holding court like a martyred queen." I smiled, typing back, "Give it 20 minutes." The next call was to the catering company, followed by the bartender, the photographer, and the entertainment service. Each conversation was brief, professional, and devastating in its simplicity. "Everything's in place," Herbert texted. "You're really doing this?" "They wanted to talk about money," I replied. "So let's talk about money." I started my car, catching a glimpse of Aunt Maeve hurrying out of the venue. She spotted me and rushed over. I rolled down my window. "Cora, whatever you're planning," she started. "How bad is it in there?" She leaned against my car, sighing. Your mother's turned it into a full Greek tragedy. June's convinced you've ruined her life. Franklin looks like he wants to disappear. Perfect. I checked my watch. In about 10 minutes, they'll have something real to cry about. What did you do? Nothing they haven't asked for. I showed her my phone, scrolling through the emails. See, Mother always said I was good with numbers. Time to prove her right. Aunt Maeve's eyes widened as she read. Oh my God, Cora, this is perfectly legal. Everything's in my name. All contracts, all arrangements. I started the engine. They wanted to talk about how I just throw money around. Well, now they can handle it themselves. Where are you going? The spa. I have a massage booked. I smiled. I did pay for it, after all. As I pulled away, I glimpsed the first signs of chaos through the venue's windows. Sarah would be making her announcements now. The open bar would suddenly require payment. The photographer would pack up. The caterers would stop service. And the bills, every single itemized bill, would be distributed to the guests who'd sat there smugly watching my humiliation. My phone exploded with notifications. I connected it to the car's Bluetooth, letting the messages play through the speakers. Cora, what's happening? June's voice trembled. The venue says we need to pay. Delete. This is your mother. How dare you? Delete. Hey, it's Franklin. Look, I know things got out of hand. Delete. A new text from Kaya. OMFG. Your mom just tried to put everything on her credit card. It was declined. June's friends are leaving. This is better than Netflix. I pulled into the spa parking lot, feeling lighter than I had in years. The receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. Welcome, Ms. Norris. Your private relaxation suite is ready. Thank you. I handed her my phone. Could you keep this for me? I'm expecting some calls I'd rather not take. Of course. Would you like to see our wine list? Please. As I followed her to the suite, another text came through from Herbert. Bills are all distributed. Your mother's trying to reach the venue owner. Should I run interference? No, I typed back. Let her try. Sometimes lessons need to be learned the hard way. I changed into the plush spa robe, listening to the distant sound of waterfalls. My phone buzzed one final time before I handed it over. A message from Aunt Maeve. Your mother's face when the bar tab arrived. Worth every penny. But darling, was it worth burning the bridge? I thought about years of criticism, of diminishment, of being treated like an ATM while being told I wasn't family-oriented enough. Some bridges, I replied, need to burn so you can finally see what's on the other side. Then I turned off my phone, ordered a glass of champagne, and prepared to enjoy every minute of my very expensive revenge. After all, I had written the check for it. The massage therapist's hands worked out 15 years of family-induced tension from my shoulders, while my phone collected angry messages in the locker room. 2 hours of blissful silence, interrupted only by the soft meditation music and occasional sound of my own satisfied sighs. More pressure, Maria, the therapist, asked. Perfect as is, I melted into the table, though I might need an extra hour. Bad day. Actually, it's turning out better than expected. When I finally emerged from the treatment room, the receptionist gave me a sympathetic look. Your phone's been active, 37 missed calls. I assume none of them were pleasant. The last one was quite loud. She handed me the phone. Something about financial terrorism? I scrolled through the messages, each one more desperate than the last. The final voicemail was from Mother, her voice shrill with panic. Cora Elizabeth Norris, you answer this phone right now. The venue is demanding payment for everything. Everything. June's friends had to pay for their own drinks. The photographer left with all the photos. The caterers packed up the food. What have you done? I deleted it with a smile and dialed Kaya. You absolute legend, she answered, laughing. I wish you could have seen it. Your mother tried to pull the "Do you know who I am?" card with the venue manager. Sarah just kept showing her the contracts with your signature. How's June? Crying, obviously. But get this, her college friends bailed when they got stuck with the bar tab. Real friendship test right there. I settled into the spa's relaxation lounge, accepting a glass of infused water. And Franklin, actually handling it better than expected. He's been making calls, trying to sort things out. I heard him tell June that maybe they'd been taking advantage of you. Interesting. I sipped my water. Any other casualties? Those designer cupcakes you ordered, the ones Mother bragged about arranging. They got packed up right as she was showing them off to her church friends. Beautiful timing. My phone buzzed with another incoming call. Herbert, hold on, Kaya. I need to take this. Cora, Herbert said without preamble. Your mother's threatening legal action. For what? I paid for everything. Exactly. You paid. And you had every right to withdraw services. She's grasping at straws. Let her grasp. I examined my freshly manicured nails. How much is the final damage? Well, between the remaining venue fees, the bar tabs, the photographer's cancellation fee, and the catering balance, roughly $28,000, which they'll have to cover themselves. Your mother's credit cards are all maxed out. He cleared his throat. June's too. Not my problem. Franklin's been reasonable. He's offered to work out a payment plan. Decline it. I stood up, gathering my things. They wanted to handle everything without my money-throwing interference. Let them. My phone buzzed again. Aunt Maeve. You've created quite the scandal, she said when I answered. Half the country club will be talking about this for months. Good, maybe they'll think twice before inviting Mother to plan their events. June's a mess, says you've ruined her baby shower memories forever. Better than letting her ruin the rest of my life. I signed my spa bill, adding a generous tip. How's Mother taking it? She's already calling everyone she knows for loans. No takers so far. Apparently, her credit history isn't as pristine as she pretends. I stepped out into the evening air, feeling refreshed and remarkably unburdened. Any regrets? Only that I didn't record it all. Aunt Maeve chuckled. Though I did get a lovely photo of your mother's face when the bar tab arrived. Worth framing, really. My phone lit up with a text from Franklin. Can we talk? Just us. I think some apologies are overdue. Interesting timing, I muttered. What will you do now? Aunt Maeve asked. I got into my car, adjusting the mirror. In it, I saw a woman who finally looked free. Now, I'm going home, ordering takeout and enjoying the silence. They wanted to talk about money. Well, now they can talk about it amongst themselves. And tomorrow? Tomorrow I'll go back to being the successful career woman they love to criticize. Only this time, they'll know exactly what that means. As I drove home, my phone kept buzzing with messages and calls. Each one represented a person who'd watched me be humiliated, but was now desperate for my help. Each one would go unanswered, because sometimes the best revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about teaching people the value of what they took for granted, and judging by the mounting bills in their hands, that lesson was just beginning. Monday morning arrived with 53 unread messages and 12 voicemails. I deleted them all and walked into my office like any other day. My assistant Sandra met me with coffee and a knowing smile. Your mother called the office 6 times. Any other calls? The Thompson contract is signed. The merger meeting is at 2. And, she hesitated. Your sister's husband stopped by. Franklin was here. Said he wanted to talk business. Sandra handed me a folder. I told him you were in meetings all day. My office phone lit up. Your mother again, Sandra said. Let it ring. Kaya burst through the door, coffee in hand. Tell me everything. How was the spa? Did you sleep well? Have you checked social media? One question at a time. I logged into my computer. The spa was perfect. I slept like a baby. And no, I'm avoiding social media. Oh, you shouldn't. She pulled out her phone. Your mom's church friends are having a meltdown in the community Facebook group. Apparently, you've destroyed the sanctity of baby showers forever. Tragic. June's posted 3 crying selfies. The last one says, when your own sister betrays you on your special day. My phone buzzed. Aunt Maeve, your mother's holding an emergency family meeting tonight, she said, without greeting. She's trying to rally the troops against you. Good luck with that. I checked my calendar. Most of them owe me money too. Franklin's been asking questions about the business side of things. Has he? I pulled up my banking app. Interesting timing, considering June's credit card payment is due today. That's not all. Aunt Maeve lowered her voice. Your mother's been calling everyone about refinancing her house. Kaya, who'd been scrolling through social media, looked up sharply. Oh my God, you have to see this. June's college friends posted about the tacky cash bar, and your mom went nuclear in the comments. My office phone lit up again. Your sister this time. Sandra's voice came through the intercom. Still in meetings, Aunt Maeve sighed through the phone. Aurora's threatening to write a letter to your board of directors about your unethical business practices. The board that I'm on, I laughed. The one that values my ability to manage multi-million-dollar deals? She's desperate. Aunt Maeve paused. They all are. Good. I opened my email to find several messages from Franklin. Maybe now they'll understand what it feels like to be valued only for your financial contributions. Kaya perched on my desk. Franklin's been commenting on your professional achievements on LinkedIn. Every single post. Trying to butter me up? More like damage control. His law firm's partners follow you. My phone buzzed with a text from Herbert. June's trying to dispute the venue charges on her credit card. Not going well for her. Your mother's calling again, Sandra announced. I pressed the intercom. Sandra, hold all calls unless they're about the Thompson deal. And if Franklin comes by again, tell him my schedule's full through next month. What about the family meeting tonight? Aunt Maeve asked. I have a dinner with clients. I didn't, but they didn't need to know that. Besides, I think they need to figure this one out themselves. Aurora's saying you've turned your back on family. No, I corrected. I've turned my back on being their personal bank. There's a difference. Kaya showed me her phone again. June's posted another update. When money matters more than family bonds. It has 3 crying emojis. Interesting how family bonds only matter when they need something from me. Sandra buzzed again. Your mother's on all 3 lines now. Time to get some actual work done. I stood up, straightening my blazer. Sandra, I'm heading to the Thompson meeting early. Forward all family calls to voicemail. And the emergency meeting, Aunt Maeve pressed. Tell them I'm busy throwing money at my career. I grabbed my portfolio. That's what I'm good at, remember. As I walked to the conference room, my phone lit up with a text from Franklin. We need to talk about June's credit score. Delete. Another from Mother. This behavior is unacceptable. We raised you better. Delete. One from June. The bank called about the venue payment. Please, Cora, we need help. Delete. Kaya caught up with me at the elevator. You know they'll keep trying. Let them. I stepped inside, pressing the button for the executive floor. They wanted to talk about how I prioritize work over family. Well, now they can see exactly what that work provides. And if they apologize, then they better make it good. The elevator doors closed on the chaos I'd left behind. Because this time, sorry isn't going to pay their bills. The Thompson contract waited upstairs, ready to be finalized. Another multi-million-dollar deal that my family would never appreciate. Until now, when they desperately needed the money it represented. Funny how karma works sometimes. 3 days of silence turned into a week. Well, silence from my end. My family's desperate attempts at contact grew more creative by the day. Mother even tried sending a singing telegram to my office. You have to admit that was a bold move, Kaya said over lunch. Though the singer looked pretty uncomfortable, delivering a guilt trip ballad in your lobby. Sandra recorded it. I picked at my salad. The board got a good laugh. Speaking of bold moves, she slid her phone across the table. Check your aunt's latest update. The photo showed Mother standing outside my childhood home, next to a "for sale" sign. The caption read, "Sometimes pride costs more than money." Subtle, I muttered. Franklin's been asking around about job openings at other firms. Kaya continued. Apparently, his partners aren't thrilled about the baby shower drama reaching their clients. My phone lit up, Herbert calling. Your mother's here in my office, he said, without preamble. With June. And? They want to discuss payment plans for the shower expenses. June's crying about credit score impacts. Not my problem. Cora. He lowered his voice. They're desperate. Your mother's talking about bankruptcy. Funny how money matters now. A text came through from Aunt Maeve. Aurora's selling her antique collection. The one she always said you weren't refined enough to inherit. Tell them I'm in meetings, I told Herbert. They've been here 3 hours. Then they can leave 3 hours wiser. I ended the call just as Sandra buzzed my office phone. Franklin's here again, says it's urgent. For the first time in a week, I hesitated. Send him in. Franklin looked different, tired, rumpled, less like the polished lawyer who'd watched silently during my humiliation. 2 minutes, I said before he could speak. June's a mess. He remained standing. Your mother's selling everything. Our credit is shot. I'm probably losing my partnership track. Sounds like consequences. Look, he ran a hand through his hair. I know we messed up. I should have spoken up at the shower. We all took you for granted. That's one way to put it. June's having panic attacks about the baby's nursery. We can't get approved for any new credit cards. Still not hearing a point. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo of June, curled up on their couch, clearly distraught. She's your sister, Cora. Whatever happened? Whatever happened? I stood up. You mean when they publicly humiliated me? When they dismissed years of support? When they called me cold and calculating while happily spending my money? We were wrong. No, you were comfortable. Taking and taking while giving nothing but criticism in return. I walked to the window. How's that working out for you? The baby's due in 4 months. I'm aware. The crib I ordered arrived yesterday. I canceled the delivery. His phone buzzed. June calling. He ignored it. Your mother's house is in pre-foreclosure, he said quietly. She has options. She could sell her designer handbags, or her vacation timeshare, or maybe call all those real family people she loves to compare me to. Cora, please. Please what, Franklin? Bail them out? Write another check. Go back to being the family ATM they can criticize between withdrawals. Sandra buzzed again. Your mother and sister just arrived in the lobby. Tell security not to let them up. Franklin stepped closer. They're sorry. No, they're broke. There's a difference. Then what do you want? What will it take to fix this? I turned to face him fully. Fix what, exactly? The relationship they never valued? The support they took for granted? The success they resented? His phone buzzed again. Mother this time. You should go, I said. Sounds like they need you. They need you. No, they need my money. And for the first time they're realizing those aren't the same thing. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I always admired your drive, your success. June was jealous. Your mother was threatened. And now? Now they're just scared of losing more than money. After he left, I watched through my office window as he joined Mother and June in the parking lot. They huddled together, probably plotting their next attempt at reconciliation. My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Maeve. They're breaking, dear. Question is, are you ready for what happens when they do? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled up the Baby Boutique website, where June had registered. The silver rattle she'd dismissed sat in my cart, along with every other item on her wish list. One click would solve all their problems. I closed the browser. Some lessons cost more than money, and this one wasn't finished teaching yet. The knock on my apartment door came at 9 p.m., exactly 2 weeks after the baby shower. I knew who it was before I checked the peephole. June stood there alone, no makeup, wearing the ratty college sweatshirt she'd always refused to throw away. You look terrible, I said, opening the door. Can I come in? I stepped aside, noting how she cradled her baby bump protectively. She settled on my couch, looking small against the modern furniture she'd once called soulless. Mom doesn't know I'm here, she said quietly. Of course she does. She's probably waiting in the car. No, I mean it. June met my eyes. I took an Uber. Franklin's at a partner meeting, trying to save his job. I remained standing. What do you want, June? I found the receipts, her voice cracked. For the shower, all of them. Mom had thrown them away, but I needed to know. And $47,000. She wiped her eyes. Not counting the gifts you bought. The ones you spent months picking out. Is this the part where I'm supposed to feel appreciated? Because you finally looked at the price tag. No. She touched her stomach. This is the part where I tell you I'm scared. Really scared. We can't afford anything for the baby. My credit cards are maxed. Franklin's firm is putting him on probation. Mom's losing the house. Sounds rough. I deserve that. She pulled out her phone. But look at this. Really look. She showed me photos from the shower. Before everything fell apart, the details I'd obsessed over were evident in every shot. The custom lighting that made everyone look perfect. The hand-calligraphed place cards. The precisely arranged flowers. You did all this, she whispered, while closing the Thompson deal, while handling the merger, while I complained about you not being there for tastings. Your point? My point is, she struggled to stand, her pregnant belly making it awkward. I was jealous, always have been. You made everything look so easy. Your career, your success. Even throwing the perfect baby shower seemed effortless for you. It wasn't. I know that now. She walked to my window, staring at the city lights. Mom's a mess. She's lost everything, her status, her credit, her reputation. The country club actually revoked her membership. Tragic. She deserved it. June turned back to me. We all did. We treated you like a bank while acting like you weren't good enough for the family. The same family you've been supporting for years. My phone buzzed. Aunt Maeve. June finally made the move. How's it going? Why are you here? I asked June directly. Because I'm having a baby. Her hand rested on her bump. A little girl. And I don't want her growing up thinking it's okay to treat people the way we treated you. I don't want her learning that success should be punished, or that money matters more than honesty. Pretty words. I'm not asking for money. She stepped closer. I'm asking for a chance to be a better sister, a better aunt to my daughter. I'm asking if it's too late to start over. And mother. She'll have to figure out her own way back, if there is one. I studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the worry lines that hadn't been there before. The silver rattle, I said suddenly. What? The shower gift you dismissed. Do you know why I chose it? She shook her head. Grandma Margaret used it to soothe us both when we were babies. Remember how she'd tell us that story? About how it was the only thing that would calm you down during thunderstorms. June's eyes filled with tears. I didn't even look at it properly. I was too busy trying to hurt you. Well, it worked. I'm so sorry, Cora. She reached for my hand. For everything. For years of everything. I let her hold my hand for a moment before pulling away. Sorry doesn't fix credit scores. I know. She moved toward the door. But maybe it's a start. As she reached for the handle, I spoke. The rattle's still in my closet. She turned, hope flickering across her face. I'm not saying I forgive you, I continued. But maybe we can talk. About the baby. About starting over. Really? Don't make me regret it. She nodded, tears falling freely now. Thank you. After she left, I texted Aunt Maeve. June just left. She came alone. And maybe there's hope for one bridge not to burn completely. What about Aurora? I looked at the family photo, still sitting on my shelf, taken years ago, when success meant nothing and family meant everything. Some bridges, I typed back, need to stay ashes. The silver rattle caught the morning light as my niece's tiny fingers wrapped around it. She had mother's eyes, but thankfully, none of her temperament. She hasn't cried once since you gave it to her, June said from the hospital bed. The nurses can't believe it. Grandma Margaret was right. I adjusted the baby's blanket. Magic rattle. Franklin entered with coffee, looking more relaxed than he had in months. His firm had kept him on after he'd taken full responsibility for his part in the shower incident. Humility, apparently, went a long way. Your mother's in the lobby, he said quietly. Again, June tensed. Did you tell her? Security's keeping her there. He handed me a cup. Your call, Cora. My phone buzzed. Aunt Maeve. Aurora's making quite a scene downstairs. Something about grandmother's rights. Let her make it, I replied, watching my niece drift to sleep. The past 3 months had been a study in consequences. Mother had indeed lost her house, moving into a small apartment that horrified her social circle. June and Franklin had started marriage counseling, working through the damage that financial stress and family dysfunction had caused. And I had learned to set boundaries. The trust fund set up, I told June, putting my coffee down. But the conditions stand. She nodded. No contact with Mother until she completes therapy. No access to the money without financial counseling first. And we maintain separate holidays. She smiled sadly. No more forced family gatherings. The baby stirred, making those tiny noises that newborns do. Franklin took a photo, then showed me his phone. Mother pacing in the lobby, gesturing wildly at hospital staff. She'll never change, June said softly. No, I agreed. But we did. My phone lit up with messages from the family group chat I'd never left. Cousin Rachel, Aurora's posting about being banned from meeting her granddaughter. Should we tell her that's not how restraining orders work? Uncle Paul. Maybe she should have thought about that before threatening Cora at her office. Aunt Maeve. The therapy appointments are paid for. She's choosing not to go. I muted the chat and focused on the baby. She had June's nose, Franklin's chin, and hopefully none of the family's talent for emotional manipulation. I've been thinking, June said, adjusting her position. About names. Please tell me you're not still considering Aurora Jr. No. She exchanged looks with Franklin. We were thinking, Margaret, after Grandma. The rattle clinked softly as the baby moved. She'd like that, I said finally. And June hesitated. We want you to be godmother. You sure? I might be too busy with my cold, calculating career. That's why we want you. Franklin sat on the bed's edge. Someone needs to teach her that success isn't a character flaw. A commotion outside drew our attention. Mother's voice carried through the door. I demand to see my granddaughter. Security responded quickly. Through the window, we watched them escort her out, her designer knockoff bag swinging wildly as she protested. You know what's sad? June cradled little Margaret closer. She could be here right now. All she had to do was get help. Some people prefer their pride to their peace. I picked up the rattle, its silver surface reflecting our small group. But that's not our problem anymore. My phone buzzed one last time. Herbert, Aurora's threatening to contest the restraining order again. Let her, I typed back. Some battles aren't worth winning when you've already won the war. June touched my arm. Thank you, not just for the trust fund or the baby stuff, for giving me a chance to be better. Us, Franklin corrected. A chance for us to be better. Little Margaret yawned, completely unaware of the family drama swirling around her. She'd grow up knowing a different kind of love, one that didn't come with price tags or conditions. Want to hold her again? June asked. I took my niece, feeling her warm weight settle against my chest. The rattle chimed softly as I rocked her. You know, I said, Grandma Margaret used to say something about family, that it's not about whose blood and who isn't. It's about who stays when the money's gone and the masks come off. Sounds wise, Franklin said. She was. I watched Margaret's eyes flutter closed, and she'd be proud of us, not for the success or the money, but for finally learning what real family means. Outside, Mother's car peeled away from the hospital parking lot, leaving only tire marks and wounded pride behind. But inside this room, with the silver rattle catching sunlight and new beginnings taking shape, we had everything we needed. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, loving better, and letting go.
The call came on a Tuesday morning, right as I was reviewing sustainability reports at my desk. Susan's name flashing across my phone screen felt like a cosmic joke. My successful big sister hadn't called me in over 2 years. I'm Peyton, the Russell sister who stayed behind in Millbrook while my siblings chased their big city dreams. The one they mockingly called small town whenever they deigned to visit during holidays. Now here was Susan, her voice tight with barely concealed desperation. Peyton, we need your help with the Riverside project. I gripped my coffee mug tighter, memories flooding back of Susan's last visit. She'd stood in our family's hardware store, designer purse dangling from her arm, sneering at the solar panel display I'd just installed. Still playing with Dad's little shop, I see, she'd said. When are you going to do something meaningful with your life? That little shop was now Russell Sustainable Development, the leading green construction firm in 3 counties. But Susan and Cora had been too busy with their glamorous real estate careers to notice. The project's facing some challenges, Susan continued, pulling me back to the present. We could use your expertise. I caught Maria's eye across the office. My business partner raised an eyebrow, already knowing who was on the phone. She'd held me together through countless family dinners, where my sisters had dismissed my work as cute and provincial. What kind of challenges? I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was racing. Structural issues, sustainability requirements, the usual bureaucratic nonsense. Susan's laugh sounded forced. Nothing we can't handle with the right assistance. I walked to the window watching workers install solar panels on the community centre we were renovating. The same project you said was too small time for my involvement 6 months ago? Silence crackled over the line. Then, things have changed. They certainly have. I picked up the morning's newspaper from my desk, studying the headline again. Riverside Development faces environmental scrutiny, financial concerns. Maria appeared at my elbow, sliding a note across my desk. Perfect chance, she'd written, followed by a devious smile. Look, Susan's voice dropped lower. I know we've had our differences, but this is business. The project needs someone with your particular experience. I thought about Dad, about how proud he'd been when I took over the store, about how he'd believed in sustainable development long before it was trendy, about how my sisters had laughed when I invested our inheritance in green technology instead of selling out to developers. When do you need me? I asked. There's a stakeholder meeting tomorrow at 2, downtown office, Riverside Plaza. She paused. Cora will be there too. Of course she would. My middle sister always following Susan's lead, always ready with a cutting remark about my life choices. I'll be there, I said, already formulating plans. Send me the project files. Peyton. Susan hesitated. Thank you. I ended the call and turned to Maria, who was practically vibrating with excitement. You're going to help them? She asked, though her grin suggested she knew exactly what I was thinking. Oh, I'm going to help all right. I pulled up the Riverside project details on my laptop. Just not the way they're expecting. Maria perched on my desk, scanning the documents. They really messed up, didn't they? These environmental impact reports are disastrous. And they're coming to their small-town sister to fix it. I couldn't help but smile. Karma's a funny thing. My phone buzzed with a text from Cora. Don't make us regret this. I showed it to Maria, who snorted. They already should. Looking at the project plans, I could see exactly where they'd gone wrong. They'd planned for profit over people, ignoring the community impact that had become my specialty. Their mistakes were my opportunity, not just for revenge, but for real change. Book me a hotel, I told Maria, standing to pack my laptop. I'm heading to the city. Give them hell, she replied, already dialing. I paused at the door, taking in the view of Main Street. The hardware store sign still hung proud, now surrounded by solar panels and green roof gardens, my vision brought to life despite my sister's doubts. Oh, and Maria, I turned back. Call Camden at the city council. Tell him I might have a solution to that affordable housing problem he's been worried about. She grinned. Already on it, boss. Tomorrow I'd walk into that meeting room and face my sisters across a conference table. They'd expect their small-town sibling to be grateful for the opportunity, eager to please. They had no idea what was coming. I grabbed my keys, feeling lighter than I had in years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about proving them wrong in ways they never saw coming. The Riverside Plaza lobby gleamed with the kind of polished pretension I'd always associated with my sisters. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of steel and glass towers, while men and women in designer suits rushed past me, clutching coffee cups like lifelines. "Well, look who cleaned up nice," Cora's voice cut through the ambient noise. She stood by the elevator wearing what probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "Almost didn't recognize you without the work boots." I adjusted my blazer, the one Maria had insisted I pack. "Good to see you too, Cora. It's been, 2 years? 3. Susan's already upstairs. Fair warning, she's in quite a mood." The elevator ride was silent, thick with unspoken accusations. I watched our reflections in the mirrored walls, Cora fidgeting with her pearl necklace, me standing perfectly still. "You know," Cora finally said, "when Susan suggested calling you, I thought she'd lost her mind. And now I think we're all about to find out if you're actually as smart as Dad always claimed." The elevator doors opened to reveal Susan pacing outside a conference room. She stopped mid-stride when she saw me. "Thank God," she muttered, pulling me into an awkward hug that felt more like a business transaction. "The stakeholders are getting restless." Inside the conference room, 8 people sat around a massive table. Susan quickly made introductions, but I was already focused on the architectural renderings spread across the surface. "As you can see," Susan was saying, "we've brought in additional expertise to address the sustainability concerns." "Concerns?" A man interrupted, his voice sharp. "The Environmental Impact Report is a disaster. The Community Coalition is threatening legal action. And now you bring in..." He glanced at me dismissively. "Your sister?" "Titus," Susan warned, but I was already moving forward. "Actually," I pulled out my laptop, "I've reviewed the reports. You're right, they're concerning. But I see 3 immediate solutions." I connected to the projector, bringing up my preliminary designs. First, we retrofit the entire south-facing facade with integrated solar panels, reducing energy consumption by 47%. The room fell silent as I walked them through my proposals. Green roofs, grey water recycling, community gardens. With each slide, I could feel the energy shifting. "This," Titus leaned forward, frowning, "this would require a complete redesign." "Yes," I met his gaze steadily. "It would." "The costs," Susan started, "would be offset by federal green energy credits and increased property values." I pulled up the financial projections. "Plus, you'd avoid those pending lawsuits." A woman at the end of the table, the project's lead investor, nodded slowly. "She's right. The current design is a liability." "We need time to consider alternatives," Titus insisted. "Time?" I laughed. "Your construction permits expire in 60 days. The community's organising protests. And your funding's contingent on meeting sustainability benchmarks you're nowhere close to achieving." Cora's hand clenched around her pen. "How do you know about the funding?" "Because unlike some people, I do my homework." I turned back to the investors. "I can have detailed plans ready in 2 weeks. Full community integration, LEED Platinum certification, and positive PR instead of protests." "And what's your stake in this?" Titus demanded. "Family," I said simply, watching Susan and Cora exchange worried glances. "Plus, I hate seeing good opportunities wasted on bad planning." The lead investor stood. 2 weeks. Show us the details and we'll discuss restructuring the development team." As the room cleared out, my sisters remained frozen in their seats. The moment the door closed, Susan exploded. "What the hell was that?" she hissed. "Restructuring the development team? That was me saving your project." I gathered my materials calmly. "Unless you'd prefer explaining to your investors why you ignored basic environmental regulations." "We didn't ignore," Cora began. "Really?" I pulled out my phone, reading from their own report. "Groundwater contamination risks, insufficient renewable energy integration, zero community input. Want me to continue?" Susan slumped in her chair. "We needed this project to work. And now it will." I headed for the door. just not quite the way you planned. Peyton, Cora's voice stopped me. Why are you really helping us? I thought about all the times they'd laughed at my choices, dismissed my work, abandoned our family's legacy for the allure of quick profits. Because that's what family does, I said, not turning around, and because sometimes the best lessons come from your own mistakes. Outside, I texted Maria. Phase 1 complete, call Camden. We're going to need that community support sooner than expected. Her reply came instantly. Already on it. Give them hell, boss. I smiled, watching the city traffic flow past. My sisters thought they were getting a simple bailout. Instead, they were about to learn exactly what their small-town sister was capable of. And this was just the beginning. The community centre buzzed with angry voices as I slipped in through the side door. Camden had warned me this meeting would be heated, but I hadn't expected such a crowd. They're trying to force us out. A woman at the podium slammed her hand down. First they buy up the properties, then they raise the rents until we can't afford to stay. Classic gentrification playbook. I found a seat near the back, watching my sisters squirm uncomfortably in their designer suits at the developer's table. They hadn't noticed me yet. The Riverside project promises new jobs, Susan was saying, her practiced smile failing to calm the crowd. Property value increases will benefit everyone. Benefit? A young woman stood up, her eyes blazing. My grandmother's lived in her apartment for 40 years. Your benefits would price her out of her own neighborhood. I recognized her from the project files. Kaya, the local activist who'd been rallying community opposition. She was good, hitting every point I'd suspected about my sister's real plans. Cora leaned forward to the microphone. We understand your concerns, but change is inevitable. So is karma, I called out, standing up. The room turned to face me. And sometimes it comes with blueprints. Susan's face went pale. Peyton, what are you— Show them the real numbers, I challenged, walking to the front. Show them the projected rent increases, the planned evictions, the renovation clauses in the fine print. Kaya's eyes narrowed. Who are you? I'm their sister. I pulled out my tablet, connecting it to the projector. And I have the documents they don't want you to see. The room erupted as I displayed the internal memos. Planned rent hikes of 300%, targeted harassment policies to force out long-term tenants, secret agreements with luxury retailers. This is confidential information, Titus shot up from his seat, face red. Funny thing about email chains, I said calmly. People really should check who's CC'd before discussing their predatory strategies. Susan grabbed my arm. What do you think you're doing? I pulled away, showing everyone exactly what kind of development you're planning. You'll destroy everything we've worked for, Cora hissed. No! I turned to the crowd. I'm offering an alternative. I switched slides to my revised plans. Imagine this instead. Affordable housing guaranteed for current residents. Solar power reducing utility costs. Community-owned businesses. A development that lifts everyone up instead of pushing people out. The room grew quiet as I walked them through the details. Green spaces, job training programs, profit sharing with local businesses. This is impossible, Titus scoffed. The numbers don't work. Actually, Camden stood up from the back right on cue. They do. The City Council has reviewed Ms. Russell's proposal. With available tax credits and federal grants for sustainable development, it's not only possible, it's more profitable long-term. I watched my sisters' faces as their carefully constructed plans crumbled. They'd never expected their small-town sister to outmaneuver them like this. After the meeting, Kaya caught up with me outside. Those plans? They're real? Very. I handed her my card. And I'd like your help making them happen. She studied me carefully. Why? They're your sisters. Exactly. I watched Susan and Cora hurrying to their car, avoiding eye contact. And sometimes family needs to learn the hard way what really matters. My phone buzzed. A message from Maria. Camden says the council's on board. Ready for phase 2? Before I could reply, Titus approached, his expensive suit failing to hide his anger. You have no idea what you've started. Actually, I do. I smiled, remembering all those times my sisters had dismissed my little sustainable projects. I'm finishing what they started, just not quite how they planned. "We'll fight this," he threatened. "Good luck." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Titus, you might want to check your own company's environmental compliance records before starting any fights." I did. The colour drained from his face as I walked away. Back at my hotel, I finally replied to Maria. Phase 2 is go. Time to show them what small-town values can really build. My phone lit up with missed calls from both sisters, but I ignored them. They'd always thought success meant pushing others down to climb up. Tomorrow they'd learn there was another way, whether they liked it or not. I pulled up the community proposal one more time, adding final touches to the plans that would transform not just the neighbourhood, but my sister's entire world view. They'd wanted my help fixing their project. Instead, they were about to discover exactly what happens when you underestimate the sister you left behind. And I was just getting started. "They're trying to buy off the council members," Camden said, sliding a folder across the coffee shop table. "Titus has been making rounds, offering campaign contributions." I sipped my coffee, watching morning traffic crawl past the window. "Of course he has. How many took the bait?" "3. Maybe 4. He leaned back, exhausted. "But we still have the majority. Barely." My phone buzzed with another call from Susan. Ignored. That made 17 since yesterday's community meeting. "You know they won't give up easily," Maria chimed in from my laptop screen, joining us virtually from back home. "Your sisters didn't get where they are by playing nice. Neither did I." I opened the folder, scanning the documents. "Look at these campaign contributions. Titus isn't even trying to hide the paper trail." Camden grinned. "That's where Kaya comes in." Right on cue, Kaya pushed through the cafe door, carrying a stack of papers that made my heart skip. "Got them," she announced, dropping into the chair beside me. "Every zoning violation, every ignored environmental regulation, every sketchy permit, fast track from the last 5 years. I spread the papers out, matching them against Camden's documents. "Perfect. Maria, you seeing this?" "Crystal clear," she replied. "And I've got something better. Remember that sustainability grant they claimed they couldn't get? Turns out they never even applied. They just told their investors it was denied. Because actually trying would have exposed their real plans," I finished. "Camden, how fast can you get a council hearing?" He checked his calendar. 3 days. But Titus will." "Perfect." I pulled out my laptop, bringing up the project plans. "That's all we need. Kaya, how's the community petition going?" "Over 2,000 signatures," she beamed. "People are fired up. We're planning a demonstration before the hearing." My phone buzzed again. "Cora this time." I silenced it without looking. "Peyton," Maria's voice turned serious. "Titus just called our office. He's offering to buy us out. Says he can triple your current contracts back home if you'll walk away." I laughed. Did he really think that would work? He also mentioned something about old permit violations at the hardware store. Sounded like a threat. The cafe suddenly felt colder. Dad's store, my store now, had been my life's work. But I'd been expecting this. "Send him the photos," I told Maria. "Which? Oh," she grinned. "The ones from his waste disposal site? The illegal one?" "Those would be the ones." Camden whistled low. "You really did your homework." "Always do." I gathered the papers into neat piles. My sisters taught me that much, at least. Always know more than your opponents think you know. "Speaking of your sisters," Kaya nodded toward the window. Susan and Cora were getting out of a taxi across the street. "Right on schedule." I stood, straightening my jacket. "Everyone know their parts?" They nodded. Maria saluted from the screen before signing off. I watched my sisters scan the cafe, their faces tight with barely controlled anger. "Peyton," Susan's voice could have frozen coffee. "We need to talk." "Actually," I gestured to the empty chairs, "we all need to talk." Cora eyed Camden and Kaya suspiciously. "This is family business." "No," I corrected. "This is community business. The kind you should have considered before trying to destroy people's homes." "We're not destroying," Susan started. "Save it." I pushed the violation reports toward them. "You've got 2 choices. Either work with us to make this project actually benefit everyone, Or watch it all fall apart at the council hearing? You wouldn't dare, Cora hissed. We're your sisters. Exactly. Which is why I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing. I met their eyes steadily. More than you gave this community. Susan flipped through the documents, her face growing paler. These would ruin us. Only if you force my hand. I softened my tone slightly. The sustainable plan works, Susan. Better profits, better press, better legacy. You just have to let go of the quick cash grab. And if we don't, Cora challenged. Camden slid his folder forward. Then these campaign contribution records become very public, along with everything else. The sisters exchanged looks, the same silent communication I remembered from childhood. Finally, Susan spoke. We need time to review the new proposals. You have until the hearing. I stood, gathering my things. 3 days. Choose wisely. Outside, Kaya touched my arm. They'll try something else. Count on it. I watched my sisters through the window, their heads bent over the documents. But for the first time in their lives, they're not holding all the cards. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria. Titus just called again. He's backing down on the permit threats. I smiled, remembering all the times my sisters had called me naive for believing in sustainable development, for staying in our hometown, for putting community before profit. Camden, I turned to him, make sure those hearing notices go out today. It's time everyone saw exactly what kind of development this city really needs, and exactly what kind of developer their small-town sister had become. The conference room at Riverside Plaza felt different this time. My sisters sat across from me, their usual confidence replaced by something closer to desperation. Between us lay 2 sets of project plans, theirs and mine. This is insane, Susan pushed my proposal away. We can't guarantee current residents can stay. The numbers don't work. They work perfectly. I pulled up the financial projections. You're just not used to profits taking longer than 6 months to materialize. Cora paced by the window. The investors will never agree. They already have. I slid across the preliminary approval letters. Turns out they prefer sustainable long-term returns over quick, risky profits. Who knew? Peyton, Susan's voice cracked slightly. This isn't just business for us. We've got everything riding on this project. So do the families you were planning to evict. I kept my voice level. The difference is, my plan lets everyone win. The door opened and Titus stormed in, face flushed. This stops now. The council meeting's been moved up to tomorrow morning. I smiled. I know. I requested the change. You what? Cora spun around. Actually, I checked my watch. The press conference should be starting right about now. I turned on the TV mounted on the wall. Kaya stood at a podium outside City Hall, surrounded by community members. Today marks a turning point, she was saying. Thanks to a new partnership between local residents and Russell's Sustainable Development, the Riverside project will become a model for ethical urban renewal. Titus lunged for the remote, but I held it out of reach. Watch. Camden stepped up to the microphone next. The City Council fully supports this innovative approach to development. We're pleased to announce additional green energy grants have been secured. You had no right, Susan whispered. I had every right. I turned to face them. The moment you asked for my help, you opened this door. Did you really think I'd just be your sustainability puppet? We're your sisters, Cora slammed her hand on the table. Exactly. Which means I know exactly how you operate. I stood, walking to the window. Every shortcut, every ignored regulation, every community you've steamrolled. Did you think I hadn't been paying attention all these years? My phone buzzed. Maria sending the latest investor responses, all positive. The project goes forward with my plan, I continued, or it doesn't go forward at all. Your choice. Titus pulled out his phone. I'll fight this. With what? I turned back. Those illegal waste disposal photos, the falsified permit applications, the buried environmental reports. Please, try. The colour drained from his face. Face it, I gathered my papers. You've lost. The only question is whether you lose everything or just your inflated profit margins. Susan stood slowly. You planned this from the beginning, the moment I called you. I planned this the day you laughed at my sustainable development goals. I met her eyes. The day you called Dad's legacy small-time thinking. The day you decided profit matters more than people. Cora sank into a chair. The investors will side with us. We have relationships. Had relationships. I turned on my tablet, showing them the incoming emails. They're already signing on to the new proposal. Turns out ethical development is very attractive these days. What do you want? Susan's voice was barely audible. I want you to sign these. I placed 3 documents on the table. Full project control transfers to my company. You stay on as minor partners, 15% each. The community gets their guaranteed housing. Everyone wins. That's winning? Cora laughed bitterly. It's better than you deserve. I checked my phone again. You have 30 minutes before the investors meet to finalize the new structure. Choose wisely. Titus grabbed his coat. This is ridiculous. We can still... No, Susan cut him off, reaching for a pen. We can't. She signed first, hand trembling slightly. Cora followed after a long moment, not meeting my eyes. Welcome to Ethical Development, I said, collecting the signed papers. The community meeting's at 7. I expect you both there, smiling. Outside the conference room, I leaned against the wall, letting out a long breath. My phone buzzed with a message from Maria. Done. Done, I typed back. Start the permit applications. And Maria, thank you for everything. Any time, boss. Show them how small towns do business. I watched through the glass as my sisters sat in stunned silence, their empire of quick profits crumbling around them. They'd taught me well, just not the lessons they'd intended. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's forcing them to become better people. Now they'd learn what real development looked like, what real success meant, what our father had tried to teach us all along. And maybe, just maybe, they'd finally understand why I'd stayed behind in that small town they'd been so eager to escape. The community was waiting. It was time to build something that would last. These profit projections can't be right. Cora slapped a folder onto my temporary office desk. We've been going through the numbers all night. I didn't look up from my laptop. Good morning to you too. Peyton, I'm serious. She leaned over my desk. These community programs you've added, the job training, the small business incubator, the childcare centre, they're bleeding money. For the first 18 months, I agreed, finally meeting her eyes. Then they start generating revenue. That's how sustainable development works. But the investors are thrilled. I turned my screen to show her the latest email chain. Because unlike you and Susan, they understand the value of long-term stability. The door opened and Susan walked in, looking like she hadn't slept. We have a problem. Titus is talking to the press. I know. I pulled up the morning's news coverage, claiming we're destroying the project's viability, threatening jobs, the usual tactics. You don't seem concerned, Cora narrowed her eyes. Because in about... I checked my watch. 15 minutes, Kaya is giving a press conference with 30 local business owners who've signed on to our retail spaces. Real businesses, not the luxury chains you had lined up. You can't just... Susan started. Actually, I can. Page 6 of the agreement you signed. Full operational control, remember? My phone buzzed. Maria sending construction updates from our other projects back home. Everything running smoothly without me. This isn't what we agreed to, Cora protested. No, it's better. I stood gathering materials for the morning meeting. You agreed to save your investment. I'm saving the whole neighborhood. By cutting our profits in half. While tripling the project's long-term value, I headed for the door. Coming? The Community Oversight Committee meets in 10 minutes. They followed, radiating resentment. In the elevator, Susan finally spoke again. Dad would have hated this. I whirled on her. Dad would have loved this. He taught us business was about more than money. You're the ones who forgot that. The committee meeting room was packed, Kaya had assembled a diverse group of local leaders, all eager to participate in the project's new direction. Ms. Russell, an elderly woman, stood as we entered. My granddaughter just enrolled in the job training program. Thank you. I smiled, watching my sisters shift uncomfortably. That's exactly why we're here. Now let's review the first phase timeline. Halfway through my presentation, Cora's phone buzzed. Her face went pale as she read the message. Titus, she whispered to Susan. He's found something. I continued presenting, but kept one eye on them as they slipped out. Through the glass walls, I watched their heated conversation in the hallway. After the meeting, I found them in my office, looking grim. He has proof, Susan said, about the hardware store, environmental violations from before Dad died. From when you two were still partners in the business, I corrected. I have those records too, including the dates you both signed off on cutting corners. Cora sank into a chair. You knew. I fixed everything after you left. Properly this time. I sat behind my desk. Those violations are as much your liability as mine. More, actually, since you were senior partners then. So we're trapped, Susan laughed bitterly. You've thought of everything. Not everything. I pulled out a new set of documents. I thought about what Dad would really want, so I'm offering you a choice. They looked at the papers suspiciously. Option 1, stay on as minor partners, learn how ethical development works, rebuild our family's reputation the right way. And option 2? Cora asked. Walk away. Clean break. I'll buy out your shares at market value. Susan picked up the papers. Why would you do that? Because despite everything, you're my sisters. I stood walking to the window. And because someone needs to show the development world there's a better way. Might as well be family. My phone buzzed. Kaya sending photos from the press conference, local business owners beaming with their signed leases. We need time to think, Cora said. You have until tomorrow. I turned back to them. Choose wisely. For once. After they left, I called Maria. How's it looking? Construction crews are ready, she said. The moment you give the word, we start transforming that neighborhood into something beautiful. And the hardware store? Still standing proud. Your dad would be amazed at what you've built from his little shop. I looked at the family photo on my desk. All of us in front of the store, years ago, before profit margins replaced principles. Maybe, I said softly. Or maybe he knew all along what we could become. Tomorrow my sisters would make their choice. But the real decision had been made years ago, when they chose to leave and I chose to stay. Sometimes the hardest part of family isn't holding on. It's knowing when to let go. The city council chambers buzzed with tension as I took my seat at the presenters' table. Kaya and Camden flanked me, while my sisters sat stiffly in the front row. They still hadn't given me their decision. This is your last chance to back down, Titus muttered as he passed by. Things could get ugly. They already were ugly, I replied, not bothering to lower my voice. That's why we're here. The council president called the meeting to order. Camera flashes lit up the room as reporters jockeyed for position. This wasn't just another development hearing. This was a showdown. The council will now hear final presentations regarding the Riverside project, she announced. Mr. Titus, you have the floor. He strode to the podium, oozing false confidence. Council members, what you're being asked to approve today is nothing short of economic suicide. These community programs and sustainability measures will destroy the project's viability. I watched the council members' faces as he spoke. Most were already checking their phones or shuffling papers. They'd seen his type before. Developers who thought profit margins were the only measure of success. Furthermore, he continued, pulling out a folder, I have evidence of past violations at Russell Sustainable Development's previous projects. Actually, Camden stood up, I have those records right here, including documentation showing how Ms. Russell corrected and reported every violation she discovered from the previous management, her sisters. Susan and Cora stiffened in their seats. I hadn't warned them about this part. The real question, Camden continued, is why the original violations were hidden by the previous owners. Perhaps Mr. Titus would like to explain his role in covering those up. Titus's face reddened. This is ridiculous. I demand— Your time is up, the council president cut in. Ms. Russell. I walked to the podium, laying out my presentation materials. Council members, residents of Riverside, I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to show you the future. The room fell silent as I pulled up the first slides. This is more than a development project. It's a blueprint for how we build communities that last. For the next 20 minutes, I walked them through every detail. Solar panels that would cut energy costs for residents, job training programs partnered with local businesses, green spaces designed by community members. But the most important part, I said, is this. I switched to the financial projections. Every resident who wants to stay can stay. Every local business that wants to grow can grow. And yes, the project still turns a profit, a sustainable one that benefits everyone. The costs, Titus tried to interrupt, are fully funded. I nodded to Camden, who distributed the grant approvals. Federal green energy credits, state development funds, private investors who understand that ethical development is good business. And the community supports this? The council president asked. We do. Kaya stood holding up a petition. 2,000 signatures, plus commitments from 40 local businesses ready to lease spaces. I glanced at my sisters. Susan sat perfectly still, but Cora was rapidly typing on her phone. Before we vote, I continued, I want to acknowledge something. I learned about development from my family's hardware store, about building things that last, about putting community first. Some people forgot those lessons. I met my sister's eyes. But it's never too late to remember them. The council president called for the vote. One by one, hands raised in approval. Titus stormed out before they finished counting. Motion passes unanimously, she announced. The Riverside project will proceed under Russell Sustainable Development's new plan. The room erupted in cheers. Kaya hugged me while Camden shook hands with council members. But I was watching my sisters. They approached slowly, looking almost lost. Congratulations, Susan said stiffly. You won. We all did. I held out my hand. If you're willing to learn a new way of doing things, Cora pulled out an envelope. We made our decision. I opened it, reading quickly. They'd chosen to stay on as minor partners. One condition, Susan added. We want to learn, really learn, about sustainable development, about building things that last. Like Dad taught us, Cora said softly. For the first time in years, I saw my sisters. Really saw them. Not the polished developers who'd left our hometown behind, but the girls who'd once helped stock shelves in our father's store. Deal. I shook their hands formally. Welcome to the future of development. My phone buzzed with a message from Maria. Construction crews ready. Just say when. Now, I typed back. It's time to build something beautiful. Outside the chambers, reporters swarmed us for comments, but I was watching the community members hugging each other, crying with relief, finally believing their homes were safe. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't about winning or losing, they're about remembering who you were meant to be all along. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to bring your family along for the ride. The autumn breeze carried the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings as I walked through the Riverside project with Maria. Construction crews worked alongside local apprentices, transforming old buildings into something remarkable. Hard to believe this is the same place, Maria said, watching a team install solar panels. Remember when your sisters thought this was impossible? Before I could answer, Susan's voice called out from behind us. We were wrong about a lot of things. She and Cora approached, wearing practical work clothes instead of their usual designer suits. They'd been spending more time on site lately, learning the business from the ground up. The community garden's ready for planting, Cora reported, consulting her tablet. Kaya's organising the residents for tomorrow's session. And the job training programme, I asked. 28 graduates already placed in permanent positions. Susan managed a small smile. You were right about the long-term benefits. A group of children ran past, heading to the new playground we'd built first, at the community's request. Their laughter echoed off buildings that now sported vibrant murals instead of foreclosure notices. Ms. Russell. An elderly woman waved from her apartment window, one of the many residents who'd fought to stay. The solar panels are amazing. My electric bill's half what it used to be. That's Mrs. Rodriguez, Cora said. I remember when we were planning to, well, you know. Evict her, I finished. Amazing how things change when you actually talk to people instead of just seeing them as numbers on a spreadsheet. A construction foreman approached with questions about the rooftop garden specifications. As Susan confidently walked him through the details, I remembered how she'd once mocked these hippie features. Peyton, Maria nudged me, nodding toward the site entrance. Look who's here. Titus stood at the fence, staring at our progress. He'd lost several major projects since our showdown, as investors increasingly demanded sustainable development plans. Should we... Cora started. I'll handle it. I walked over to him, coming to check on the impossible project. The market will never support this kind of development, he insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Really? I handed him our latest financial report. Because the waiting list for residential units suggests otherwise, and those hippie features you mocked? They've cut operating costs by 40%. He scanned the numbers, frowning. This can't be right. It is. I gestured at the site. This is the future of development, Titus. You can either adapt or become obsolete. Is that an offer? It's advice, free of charge. I turned back to my sisters, who were showing Maria the new community centre plans. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a neighbourhood to build. Camden arrived as Titus left, carrying fresh council approvals for our next phase. The city's already getting calls from other developers, he reported. They want to know how to replicate this model. Send them to Peyton, Susan said. She's the expert. The words hung in the air, an acknowledgement that would have been impossible just months ago. Actually, I looked at my sisters. Send them to all of us. We've got something better than expertise now. We've got proof it works. Kaya joined us, excitement evident in her voice. The first small business loans are approved, 10 local shops ready to move into the retail spaces, including Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter's bakery, Cora added, the one we almost displaced. We walked together through the project, past workers installing energy-efficient windows and residents planning their community garden plots. Every corner held a story of transformation, not just of buildings, but of people. Dad would have loved this, Susan said quietly. He does love it. I pointed to the hardware store logo we'd incorporated into the development's branding. His legacy lives in every sustainable choice we make. Maria checked her watch. The Community Council meets in 10 minutes. They're voting on the art installation proposals. As we headed to the meeting, I watched my sisters interact with residents by name, discussing solar panels and garden plans with genuine enthusiasm. They'd found something better than quick profits. They'd found purpose. You know, Cora said as we reached the community centre, I used to think you were naive, staying in that small town, running Dad's little store. And now? Now I think you are building something bigger than we could see. She paused. Thank you for not giving up on us. Inside, the community council room buzzed with activity. Residents shared ideas, local business owners planned collaborations, and children drew their dreams for their neighbourhood's future. This was what sustainable development really meant. Not just buildings and profits, but people and possibilities. Ready? Maria asked, handing me the meeting agenda. I looked around at my sisters, our team, and the community we'd brought together. Ready. Let's build something beautiful. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about showing others a better way forward. And sometimes, the hardest lessons lead to the most remarkable transformations.
The silence in my world has always been absolute, but never more deafening than at tonight's family dinner. I watch my brother-in-law Adrian's lips curl into that familiar smirk as he deliberately turns away while speaking, making sure I can't read his lips. My sister Sarah notices but says nothing, pushing her food around her plate instead of meeting my eyes. I'm Stella, and I've been deaf since birth. While most people see this as a limitation, I've turned it into my superpower. My foundation has helped hundreds of deaf individuals achieve financial independence, but somehow my own family still treats me like I'm broken. So, Stella, Adrian says, finally turning to face me, exaggerating his mouth movements mockingly. Still playing with your little charity project? I sign my response while speaking clearly, knowing it irritates him when I do both. The foundation just secured a $1 million grant for our financial literacy program. My mother Cassandra beams, but Adrian scoffs. Must be nice getting handouts because people feel sorry for you. The fork in my hand trembles slightly. I set it down before anyone notices. Actually, I say, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. We earned that grant through our proven success rate. 87% of our participants have started successful businesses or secured professional positions. Walker, my boyfriend, squeezes my knee under the table. He's been learning sign language, unlike my family who never bothered. Even Sarah, my own sister, only knows basic signs despite growing up with me. Adrian makes a show of signing gibberish, his hands flailing dramatically. Look, I'm speaking deaf! He laughs, nudging Sarah, who forces a weak smile. The room grows tense. My mother clears her throat. Adrian, that's enough. But he's not done. Come on, it's just a joke. Stella knows I'm kidding, right? She can take a joke, even if she can't take a phone call. Walker starts to stand, but I touch his arm. This is my battle. You know what's funny, Adrian? I sign and speak, my voice carrying an edge I rarely allow. I may be deaf, but I can still hear the insecurity in your mockery. How's your investment firm doing? Still recovering from that SEC investigation? The color drains from his face. Sarah gasps. That's enough! My mother interrupts, her hands shaking as she reaches for her wine glass. Can we please have one peaceful dinner? I stand up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I think I'm done here. Walker? As we gather our things, Dean, my closest friend and tech advisor at the foundation, texts me. Meeting tomorrow, breakthrough with the Neural Interface Project. You need to see this. Stella, don't go, Sarah calls after me, but I'm already heading for the door. In the car, Walker signs, You okay? I shake my head. Watching the streetlights blur through tears I refuse to let fall. I'm done being the family joke. Done being underestimated. Done being treated like a child who needs protection rather than an adult who runs a successful foundation. Walker's expression shifts from concern to curiosity. What are you thinking? I pull out my phone and show him Dean's text. Remember that experimental technology we've been developing? The one that simulates the deaf experience for hearing people? He nods slowly, a smile spreading across his face, as he realizes where I'm going with this. I think it's time my family understands exactly what it feels like to be in my world, I say, my fingers flying over the phone screen as I text Dean back. Set up the meeting. It's time. Walker watches me carefully. Revenge isn't usually your style. This isn't just revenge, I reply, both signing and speaking out of habit. It's education. Sometimes people need to experience something to understand it. And my family? They're long overdue for a lesson in empathy. As we drive home, I can't help but smile, thinking about Dean's breakthrough. For years, my family has lived in their world of sound, making assumptions about mine. They've never truly tried to understand my reality, preferring instead to paint me as someone to be pitied or mocked. But soon, very soon, they'll understand what it means to live in my world. And maybe, just maybe, they'll finally see me for who I really am. Not despite my deafness, but because of everything I've achieved with it. My phone buzzes again. It's Dean. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. You're going to love this. I show Walker the message, and he grins. Ready to turn the tables? I nod, feeling a mixture of excitement and determination replace my earlier anger. They want to joke about my world of silence? Let's see how they handle it when the joke's on them. The city lights flash by as we drive home, and for the first time tonight, I feel powerful. Adrian's mockery, Sarah's passive acceptance, my mother's enabling, they've all pushed me to this moment. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served in silence. And I am the master of silence. The next morning, I arrive at the Foundation's tech lab earlier than usual. The events from last night keep replaying in my mind, each flash of Adrian's mocking smile fueling my determination. Dean is already there, practically bouncing with excitement as he waves me into his workspace. "You're not going to believe this," he signs enthusiastically, leading me to his workstation. "Remember that neural interface project we've been developing?" I nod, setting down my coffee. The project had started as a way to help hearing people understand the deaf experience through temporary sound suppression, but we'd hit several roadblocks with the technology. Dean pulls up a series of diagrams on his monitors. We solved the latency issues. The device now creates near-instant sound suppression, completely safe and reversible. But here's the best part. He grins mischievously. We can control it remotely. My eyes widen as I process the implications. "Show me." He reaches into a drawer and pulls out what looks like a sleek conference room speaker. This is our prototype. It appears to be a standard audio device, but it actually creates a localized field that temporarily disrupts the brain's ability to process sound. Completely harmless, but extremely effective. "How long does it last?" I sign, already imagining the possibilities. "As long as the device is active. The effect stops the moment we turn it off." He demonstrates by activating the device. Though it makes no difference to me, I can see the change in his expression as the silence envelops him. Walker arrives just then, and I watch as his mouth moves, but no sound reaches Dean's ears. Dean's face lights up with satisfaction as he deactivates the device. "That was incredible," Walker says, signing simultaneously. "It felt like being underwater, but without the pressure. Total silence." I pull up a chair, my mind racing. "Dean, what if we arranged a family meeting? A presentation about a new investment opportunity through the Foundation?" Dean catches on immediately. "And halfway through, we activate the device," I finish, my hands moving faster with excitement. "They'll have no choice but to experience my world firsthand." Walker looks concerned. "Are you sure about this? It's one thing to demonstrate the technology, but using it as revenge. It's not just revenge." I sign firmly. "It's education. They've never tried to understand my world. Maybe this is what it takes." I pull out my phone and start composing a message to my family. "Important investment opportunity presentation at the Foundation next week. Potential for significant returns. Your presence is requested." Dean watches me type. "Adrian won't be able to resist the promise of money." "Exactly," I reply. "His greed will be his downfall." My phone buzzes almost immediately with responses. Sarah: "We'll be there." Mother: "Looking forward to it, dear." Adrian: "About time you did something serious with that charity of yours." I show Dean and Walker the responses, my hands trembling slightly with anticipation. Now we plan the presentation. Over the next hour, we craft our strategy. The presentation will start normally, with Walker handling the spoken portion while I sign. Then, halfway through, we'll activate the device. "We should record it," Dean suggests, his eyes gleaming. "For research purposes, of course." I shake my head, smiling. "Of course." As we work, I receive another text from Sarah. "I'm sorry about last night. Adrian was out of line." I stare at the message, feeling the familiar mix of love and frustration that comes with family. I type back, "Come early to the presentation. There's something I want to show you first. Maybe there's hope for my sister. Maybe she just needs to understand." Walker touches my shoulder. "Having second thoughts?" I look up at him, then at Dean, who's already programming the device parameters. "No, they need this. I need this." "Then let's make it count," Dean signs, pulling up the Foundation's financial reports. "We'll show them exactly what they've been mocking. Your little charity project has helped more people in 2 years than Adrian's firm has in 10. I spend the rest of the morning reviewing our presentation materials, making sure every detail is perfect. The financial reports, the success stories, the growth projections, everything that proves I'm not just playing at running a foundation. As I leave the lab that afternoon, I catch my reflection in the glass doors. I see someone strong, capable, and ready to fight back. Not with violence or cruelty, but with understanding, even if it has to be forced understanding. My phone buzzes again. It's Adrian. Better make this worth my time, sis. Some of us have real jobs to get back to. I smile, thinking of the silence that awaits him. Oh, it will be worth every second, I type back. I promise you won't forget this presentation. Dean sends me one final message before I head home. Device tested and ready. Operation Silence is go. For the first time since last night's dinner, I feel truly peaceful. Soon they'll understand. Soon they'll know what it means to live in my world. And maybe, just maybe, they'll finally see me for who I really am. The countdown to silence begins. The morning of our final test run, I arrive at the foundation to find Dean pacing nervously in the conference room. His usual confident demeanor is replaced with visible anxiety as he runs another diagnostic on the device. "What's wrong?" I sign, setting down my laptop. He hesitates before responding. "We found a potential issue during the last test. The device's effects might be more intense than we anticipated." Walker enters just then, catching Dean's signs. "What kind of intense?" Dean pulls up some data on his tablet. "The silence isn't just acoustic. Some test subjects reported feeling disoriented, almost panicked. One person said it felt like being trapped inside their own head." I lean forward, studying the readings. "Is it dangerous?" "No," Dean signs quickly. "Just overwhelming for people who've never experienced anything like it, and—" He pauses, looking uncomfortable. "There's something else. The effect radius is larger than we thought. Anyone in the room will be affected, including Walker." Walker shrugs. "I can handle it. I've been practicing sign language anyway." "That's not all," Dean continues. "Once activated, we can't selectively turn it off for individual people. It's all or nothing." I sit back, considering the implications. This could complicate things, especially if someone panics. "How long until the presentation?" 3 days, Walker signs. "Sarah's coming early tomorrow for your private meeting." I nod, remembering my promise to show her something first. Maybe this is an opportunity. Let's do a full test now. I need to know exactly what they'll experience. Dean sets up the device while Walker positions himself at different points in the room. I watch as Dean activates it, observing Walker's reaction carefully. The change is immediate. Walker's eyes widen, and his hand instinctively goes to his ear. He takes a few unsteady steps, then signs. This is intense. More than before. Dean starts a timer. "Try walking around, talking, anything you'd normally do." Walker attempts to speak, but I can see the frustration on his face as he can't hear his own voice. He switches to signing. It's disorienting, like being underwater, but worse. I feel isolated. "Welcome to my world," I sign, a mix of emotions washing over me. After 5 minutes, Dean deactivates the device. Walker takes a deep breath, looking shaken. "That was powerful. Maybe too powerful for your family to handle. They need to understand." I sign firmly. "This is what they've been mocking. This is what they've dismissed." Dean interjects, "But what if someone has a panic attack? What if Adrian makes a scene?" I hadn't considered that. Adrian's temper is legendary, and being suddenly thrust into silence might trigger something ugly. "We'll need a backup plan." We spend the next hour developing safety protocols. Dean programs a kill switch that can be activated from multiple devices. Walker suggests having printed cards explaining what's happening, just in case. My phone buzzes. A text from Sarah. "About tomorrow. Can I bring Mom too? She wants to talk." I show the message to Walker and Dean. "This changes things." "Or makes them better," Walker signs. "Your mom's more reasonable than Adrian. Maybe having her understand first would help." I think about my mother's face at dinner, her weak attempts to stop Adrian's mockery. Maybe Walker's right. "Okay," I text back. "Bring her." Dean runs another diagnostic. The device is stable, but we should limit exposure to 15 minutes max. After that, people might start experiencing anxiety. 15 minutes is all we need, I sign. Just long enough to make our point. Walker touches my arm. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Once we start, there's no going back. I look around the room, at Dean's concerned face, at Walker's supportive presence, at the device that could change everything. They've had years to try understanding my world, years to learn sign language, to show respect, to treat me as an equal. Instead, they chose mockery and pity. And if it backfires? Dean asks. Then at least I tried, I sign. At least I fought back. We spend the rest of the afternoon fine-tuning our plans. Dean adjusts the device's settings, while Walker helps me polish my presentation. Every slide, every gesture, every moment needs to be perfect. As we're wrapping up, Dean makes one final check of the equipment. Everything's ready for tomorrow, are you? I look at the conference room, imagining Sarah and my mother's faces when they experience silence for the first time. Will they understand? Will they finally see? I'm ready, I sign. Tomorrow, we start changing minds. Walker hugs me goodbye, signing, Be careful. Remember, they're still your family. I watch them leave, then stand alone in the conference room. The device sits innocently on the table, looking like nothing more than a standard piece of office equipment. But tomorrow, it becomes something more. A bridge between two worlds, or maybe a weapon of understanding. My phone lights up with a final text from Sarah. See you tomorrow, sis. Love you. I touch the screen gently. Love you too, I type back, hoping that after tomorrow, those words will mean more than they ever have before. Sarah arrives first, our mother trailing behind her, with an anxious expression I know all too well. The conference room feels smaller somehow, more intimate, as they take their seats across from me. Before we start, Sarah speaks and signs clumsily, a surprise that makes my heart skip. I've been practicing, a little. Mom nods. We both have. YouTube tutorials. I keep my face neutral, even as emotion threatens to overwhelm me. Why now? That dinner. Sarah looks down at her hands. The way Adrian behaved. I saw your face, Stella. Really saw it, maybe for the first time. Mom reaches across the table, her fingers trembling slightly. We've been terrible, haven't we? I take a deep breath, my hands steady as I sign and speak. You're here now. That's something. I glance at the device sitting innocently on the table. I want to show you something we've been developing. Dean enters right on cue, tablet in hand. He greets them warmly while setting up the equipment, his movements deliberate and practiced. This technology, I explain, allows hearing people to experience the world as I do. Would you be willing to try it? Sarah's eyes widen. You mean complete silence? For just a few minutes, I assure them. It's completely safe. Mom hesitates. Will it hurt? Dean steps in, his manner professional and reassuring. Not at all. It's temporary and reversible. Think of it as stepping into Stella's shoes for a moment. They exchange glances, then nod. I feel a surge of respect for their courage. Ready? I ask. Wait, Sarah says quickly. I need to tell you something first. She glances at Mom, who gives her an encouraging nod. Adrian, he's been having trouble at work. The firm's losing clients. He's taking it out on everyone, not just you. I'm not excusing his behavior, but he's scared, Mom finishes. And doing what scared, insecure people do, lashing out. This information settles in my chest, not quite changing my plans, but adding a new layer to consider. Thank you for telling me. Dean activates the device. The change in their expressions is immediate. Sarah's hand flies to her throat as she tries to speak, her eyes growing wide when she can't hear her own voice. Mom grips the table edge, looking around wildly. I wait 30 seconds, letting them adjust to the silence, then begin signing. This is my world. Every day, every moment. Sarah attempts to speak, then frustratedly switches to her basic signs. How do you... Her hands shake as she struggles to find the right gestures. Mom just watches, tears streaming down her face. I continue signing, speaking for Dean's benefit. I'm not broken. I'm not limited. I'm just experiencing life differently than you do. But instead of trying to understand my world, you've expected me to adapt completely to yours. After 3 minutes, I see the panic starting to set in. Sarah's breathing becomes rapid, and Mom closes her eyes tightly. I nod to Dean, who deactivates the device. The return of sound hits them like a physical force. Sarah gasps, and Mom lets out a small sob. That was 3 minutes, I sign and say quietly. I've lived this way for 35 years. Oh, Stella, Sarah's voice breaks. I had no idea. No idea at all. Mom wipes her eyes. How do you do it? How do you stay so strong? Because I had to be, I respond. Because the world doesn't stop just because you can't hear it. Sarah stands abruptly, circling the table to hug me. I'm so sorry for everything, for not learning to sign properly, for letting Adrian. I pull back, meeting her eyes. The presentation next week. Adrian needs to experience this too. He won't handle it well, Sarah warns. You know how he is about being in control. That's exactly why he needs it, Mom says, surprising me. He needs to understand he's not always the most powerful person in the room. Dean clears his throat. The full presentation will be longer, 15 minutes of silence. Sarah's eyes widen. 15 minutes? We could barely handle 3. That's the point, I sign. Sometimes understanding requires discomfort. Mom reaches for my hand. We'll support you, whatever happens. Even if Adrian reacts badly? I ask. Sarah's expression hardens. Especially then, it's time someone stood up to him. As they prepare to leave, Sarah turns back. That investment opportunity you mentioned in your message. I smile. That's real too. The foundation is expanding. We're offering family members a chance to invest if they prove they understand our mission. Mom laughs softly. Clever girl, using Adrian's greed against him. After they leave, Dean turns to me. That went better than expected. I nod, watching through the window as my mother and sister walk to their car, heads bent close together in conversation. Maybe there's hope after all. But as I gather my things, Adrian's angry face flashes in my mind. The real test is still to come, and something tells me it won't be nearly as peaceful as today's revelation. My phone buzzes. A text from Adrian. Looking forward to seeing what your little charity can do. Don't disappoint me. I smile grimly. Oh, Adrian. You have no idea what's coming. The day of the presentation arrives, with a tension that feels electric. Adrian strides into the conference room 10 minutes late, his expensive suit and confident smirk a stark contrast to Sarah's nervous energy and Mom's cautious demeanor. Walker stands beside me at the front of the room, while Dean sits near the device, appearing to take notes on his tablet. Let's make this quick, Adrian announces, loosening his tie. Some of us have real meetings to attend. I catch Sarah's eye as she winces at his words. She signs a subtle sorry when Adrian isn't looking. Thank you all for coming, I sign and speak, watching Adrian's eyes roll at my dual communication. Today's presentation is about more than just an investment opportunity. It's about understanding. Walker begins the slideshow, highlighting the foundation's achievements. I notice Mom leaning forward, genuinely interested, while Adrian checks his phone under the table. Our foundation has achieved a 90% success rate in employment placement, Walker explains, pointing to the graphs. We've helped launch over 50 successful businesses owned by deaf entrepreneurs. Adrian scoffs. Impressive for a charity case, I suppose. That's my cue. I nod slightly to Dean, who activates the device. The change is instantaneous. Adrian's smug expression freezes as the silence descends. He shakes his head, as if trying to clear water from his ears. Sarah and Mom, knowing what's coming, sit very still, though I can see them bracing themselves. I continue signing, but now Walker stops speaking. The only sound in the room is the soft hum of the air conditioning. Not that they can hear it anymore. Adrian's face reddens. He opens his mouth to speak, but the silence that greets his own voice makes him jerk back in his chair. He snaps his fingers next to his ear, then slams his hand on the table. "What the hell is this?" he mouths, words clear but silent. I sign slowly, deliberately, knowing he can't understand. Sarah, to my surprise, begins translating my signs into mouthed words for him. "This is my world, Adrian. The world you've been mocking. How does it feel to be the one who can't understand?" He stands abruptly, knocking his chair backward. The panic in his eyes is exactly what I expected. But what happens next isn't. Instead of raging or trying to leave, Adrian freezes. His chest heaves with rapid breaths as he looks wildly around the room. Mom reaches for him, but he jerks away, stumbling slightly. I continue signing. "Every joke you made, every time you turned away while speaking, every moment you chose to exclude me. This is what it felt like." Sarah translates faithfully, tears streaming down her face. Adrian's legs give out, and he slumps back against the wall, sliding down to a sitting position. I walk over and kneel before him, making sure he can see my face clearly. "The difference is, you can't handle 5 minutes of this. I've lived it my entire life." His lips move, forming words I've never seen from him before. "I'm sorry, but I'm not done." I stand and sign to the room, Sarah still translating. "The foundation isn't a charity case. We've secured contracts with major corporations. We're launching a tech division. That investment opportunity I mentioned? It's real. But it's only open to those who respect our community." Adrian's face shifts from panic to something else. Realization, perhaps, or regret. Mom moves to comfort him, but Sarah holds her back, shaking her head. After exactly 15 minutes, Dean deactivates the device. The return of sound makes everyone except me flinch. Adrian doesn't move from his position on the floor. When he finally speaks, his voice is hoarse. How do you live like that?" "I live like that because I have no choice," I respond, both signing and speaking. "The question is, how will you live, knowing what you know now?" He looks up at me, and for the first time in years, I see my brother-in-law without his armor of arrogance. "I've been a complete ass, haven't I?" Sarah lets out a sound between a laugh and a sob. "Yes, you have." Adrian slowly gets to his feet, straightening his suit with trembling hands. "The investment opportunity. Is it really open to family?" It is," I confirm. "But there's a condition." "Sign language lessons," he says before I can continue. "I'll do it. I'll learn. I promise." I study his face, looking for any trace of his usual mockery. Instead, I find something I've never seen before: respect. "The lessons start next week," I sign and speak. "Don't be late." He nods, then turns to Sarah. "Can we go? I need some air." As they leave, Mom hugs me tightly. "You're incredible, you know that?" Dean powers down the device while Walker collects the presentation materials. "That went better than we expected," Walker signs. I watch through the window as Adrian leans against his car, head in his hands, while Sarah rubs his back. The sight doesn't fill me with the satisfaction I'd imagined. Instead, I feel something else. Hope. My phone buzzes with a text from Adrian. "I'll never understand completely, but I want to try. Thank you for showing me." Sometimes, I realize, revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes, it's about rebuilding them into something better. 1 week after the presentation, I sit in my office reviewing investment documents when a knock at the door makes me look up. Adrian stands there, looking uncomfortable in casual clothes instead of his usual suit. Sarah's beside him, beaming. "We're early for the first lesson," she signs and speaks. Her signing has improved dramatically in just a week. Adrian clears his throat. "I, brought coffee for everyone." He holds up a carrier with 4 cups. "I remembered you like caramel macchiatos." I hide my surprise. I didn't even know he paid attention to my coffee preferences. Dean pokes his head in. "Ready for the lesson?" He spots the coffee. "Oh, perfect timing." We gather in the conference room, The same one where everything changed a week ago. Adrian keeps glancing at the spot where he'd collapsed against the wall. "Before we start," he says, hands fidgeting, "I need to show you something." He pulls out his phone and opens a video. It's him, practicing basic signs. The timestamp shows 3 a.m. "I've been watching tutorials every night," he admits. "I know it's not much, but..." He attempts to sign along as he speaks. "Hello? My name is Adrian. I am learning." His movements are clumsy, but the effort is genuine. Sarah wipes away tears, while Dean gives an approving nod. "That's actually not bad," I sign and speak, "but your hand position for learning needs adjustment." Adrian's face lights up at the praise. "Show me." For the next hour, we work on basic greetings and introductions. Adrian's intensity surprises me. He takes notes, asks questions, and practices each sign until his fingers cooperate. During a break, he turns to me. "I've been thinking about the investment opportunity." Here it comes, I think. The real reason for his sudden interest. "I want to invest," he continues. "But not just money. I want to help expand the program. My firm has connections with major corporations. What if we created a job placement program specifically for deaf professionals in the financial sector?" I stare at him, searching for any trace of his old condescension. There isn't any. "Why?" I ask directly. He sets down his coffee. "Because I was wrong, dead wrong. What you've built here." He gestures around the foundation's offices. "It's not a charity, it's a revolution, and I want to be part of it." Sarah reaches for his hand, squeezing it proudly. "There's more," Adrian continues, attempting to sign what he can. "I've scheduled a meeting with my firm's board. I want to present your foundation's work to them, but..." He looks uncertain. "I'd like you to use the device during the presentation." Dean, who's been quietly observing, sits up straighter. "You want to subject your board to the silence?" Adrian nods. "They need to understand, like I did. Will you help me?" I study my brother-in-law's face. A week ago, he was mocking my little charity project. Now he's practicing signs at 3 a.m. and planning corporate partnerships. "The board won't like it," I warn him. "Good," he replies firmly. "They need to be uncomfortable. Change doesn't happen in comfort zones. You taught me that." Dean pulls up the foundation's calendar on his tablet. "When's the board meeting?" "Next Thursday," Adrian says. "I've already reserved 2 hours. That's enough time, right?" I nod slowly, still processing this transformation. "You understand this could affect your position at the firm?" He laughs, a genuine sound I've rarely heard from him. "Stella, after experiencing those 15 minutes of silence, I realized something. My position means nothing if I'm not using it for something worthwhile." Sarah beams at him, then signs perfectly. "I'm proud of you." Adrian attempts to sign back. "Thank you." His fingers fumble, but the intention is clear. "One condition," I say, both signing and speaking. "You continue the lessons, twice a week. Make it 3 times." He counters. "I need to be fluent before the board meeting. I want to present part of it in sign language." Dean whistles low. "That's ambitious." "I'm a fast learner," Adrian says, then adds in careful signs, "when I want to be." As we resume the lesson, I watch Adrian practice basic business terms with fierce determination. The same intensity he once used to mock my world, he now uses to understand it. My phone buzzes. A text from Walker. "How's it going with Adrian?" I glance at my brother-in-law, who's making Sarah laugh with his exaggerated facial expressions as he practices emotional signs. "Come see for yourself," I text back. "You won't believe it." Adrian catches my eye. "Everything okay?" I nod, signing, "Everything is better than okay." He grins and signs back slowly, carefully. "Family is better than money." And for the first time since I can remember, I believe him. The board meeting arrives faster than any of us expected. I stand outside the firm's imposing conference room, watching through the glass as Adrian sets up our presentation materials. His hands shake slightly as he arranges the papers, but his face shows determination. Dean checks the device one last time. "Ready?" I nod, adjusting my blazer. Walker squeezes my shoulder supportively. They're all here, Adrian signs, his movements now fluid after 3 weeks of intensive practice. Time to change some minds. We enter the room to face 12 stern-faced board members. Their expressions range from mild curiosity to obvious skepticism. Ladies and gentlemen, Adrian begins, standing tall, I've brought something revolutionary to share today. He glances at me, then continues both speaking and signing. This is my sister-in-law, Stella. She's about to show you the future of inclusive business. One board member, a silver-haired man with an expensive watch, checks his phone dismissively. Another whispers to his colleague, clearly questioning Adrian's signing. Perfect targets. I step forward, signing while Walker voices for me. Thank you for having me. Before we begin, I'd like to demonstrate something unique. Adrian nods to Dean, who activates the device. The change ripples through the room like a wave. The silver-haired man drops his phone. The whispering board members grab their ears. Panic flashes across 12 faces. Adrian remains calm, signing clearly. This is what millions of deaf people experience every day. This is the world you've been ignoring. I watch as the board members struggle to process their new reality. One woman tries to speak, then clutches her throat in shock. Another man stands abruptly, heading for the door, but Adrian blocks his path. Please stay, he signs, while I voice the translation. This discomfort you're feeling? This is your wake-up call. The next 15 minutes are transformative. We present our statistics, our success stories, our vision, all in complete silence. Adrian signs alongside me now, his movements confident and precise. When Dean finally deactivates the device, the room erupts. What was that? How did you? I couldn't hear anything. The silver-haired man, still shaken, raises his hand. Mr. Holmes, Adrian, what exactly are you proposing? Adrian straightens his tie. A complete overhaul of our hiring practices, partnership with Stella's foundation, implementation of deaf-inclusive policies across all our branches. He takes a deep breath. And my resignation if you refuse. Gasps fill the room. I grab his arm, but he shakes his head. I mean it, he continues. I've been part of the problem. Now I want to be part of the solution. The woman who had tried to speak during the silence stands up. I have a question for Stella. I nod, ready for resistance. How soon can we start? The room goes quiet again, this time naturally. Adrian's face breaks into a grin. The silver-haired man clears his throat. I believe we should put it to a vote. Wait, Adrian signs and speaks. Before you vote, there's something else you should see. He pulls up a new presentation on the screen. It's a business plan, detailed, comprehensive, revolutionary. A complete integration program for deaf professionals in the financial sector. I've spent the last 3 weeks working on this, he explains. With Stella's help, the potential return on investment is substantial, but more importantly, he signs the next part without speaking, letting me translate. It's the right thing to do. The board members exchange glances. The silver-haired man picks up his fallen phone, opens his calendar, and says, I move to approve the partnership immediately. And Adrian. He looks up. We're going to need you to stay and lead this initiative. The vote is unanimous. As the board members file out, many stopping to shake my hand or attempt basic signs they've looked up on their phones, Adrian turns to me. Thank you, he signs, his eyes suspiciously bright. For not giving up on me, Sarah bursts into the room. She'd been waiting anxiously outside. Well? Adrian sweeps her into a hug. We did it! Dean packs up the device, grinning. Not bad for a little charity project, huh? I watch my family celebrate, Adrian teaching the basic sign for success to the lingering board members, Sarah hugging everyone in sight, Walker documenting everything for the Foundation's records. The silver-haired man approaches me one last time. Ms. Douglas, would you be willing to schedule another demonstration for our other branches? I smile, signing as Walker translates. Absolutely, but next time, let's make it 30 minutes. He pales slightly, but nods. Whatever it takes. As we leave the building, Adrian stops me in the lobby. Dinner tonight? The whole family? I'm buying. Only if you order in sign language, I tease. He grins. Challenge accepted. Looking at him now, proud, humble, changed, I realize my revenge didn't destroy him after all. It rebuilt him, rebuilt us all. My phone buzzes with a group text from Mom. So proud of both my children today. Love speaks in all languages. Adrian peers over my shoulder at the message and signs, perfectly. Family is better than money. This time, I sign back. Family is everything. The autumn breeze carries the scent of coffee as I approach our usual meeting spot. Through the cafe window, I see them all already gathered. Adrian practicing signs with Sarah, Mom attempting to teach Walker some old family signs she'd remembered, and Dean setting up his laptop for our weekly foundation update. My heart swells at the sight. This is what victory looks like. The bell chimes as I enter. Everyone turns and signs good morning in perfect unison, a little inside joke we've developed. Sorry I'm late, I sign, settling into my seat. The interview ran long. How'd it go? Adrian asks, both signing and speaking, a habit he's maintained even after becoming fluent in sign language. I pull out my tablet and show them the news article that just went live. Major financial firm leads revolution in deaf employment. Over 100 deaf professionals hired in first quarter. Sarah squeals and hugs Adrian, who looks both proud and embarrassed. That's not all, I continue. Show them, Dean. Dean turns his laptop around, displaying the foundation's latest statistics. The numbers tell a story even better than we'd hoped. Employment rates up 300%. Corporate partnerships doubled, and waiting lists for our programs growing daily. We're going to need a bigger office, Dean signs with a grin. Adrian leans forward, his expression serious. Actually, about that. He slides a folder across the table. The board approved it this morning. Inside are blueprints for an entire building. Modern, accessible, and completely designed around deaf-friendly architecture. The Deaf Enterprise Center, Mom reads aloud, her voice catching. It's beautiful. Wait until you see the best part, Adrian signs, flipping to the last page. There, in detailed renderings, is a state-of-the-art conference center with built-in sound manipulation technology, an advanced version of our original device. Now everyone can experience both worlds, he explains. Hearing people can understand silence, and with new audio enhancement features, some deaf people might experience sound in their own way. Walker studies the plans. This is incredible, but the cost? Already covered, Adrian signs. Every board member invested personally. Turns out 15 minutes of silence can really open both minds and wallets. Sarah wipes away tears. Remember that first family dinner? When you stormed out? Hard to forget, I reply. But there's no bitterness in my signs now. I keep thinking, she continues, what if you hadn't fought back? What if you just accepted how we treated you? Adrian sets down his coffee. Then I'd still be that arrogant jerk who thought success only looked one way. He signs the next part with perfect fluency. You didn't just teach me sign language, Stella. You taught me to listen with my heart. Mom reaches for my hand. You taught us all. Dean clears his throat. Speaking of teaching, he pulls up another document. The Educational Board approved our curriculum. Starting next semester, sign language will be offered in every public school in the district. The news hits me harder than expected. I think of all the deaf children who won't have to fight the battles I did, who will grow up in a world where their language is valued, not mocked. There's one more thing, Adrian signs, looking nervous. I've been practicing this for weeks. He stands up and begins signing a story. Fluid, expressive, beautiful. It's about a deaf girl who changed her family's world by refusing to accept their limitations. As he signs, Sarah translates for the few hearing customers in the cafe who've started watching. When he finishes, the cafe erupts in applause, both traditional and silent, hands waving in the air in the deaf applause I've known all my life. The blend of both worlds brings fresh tears to my eyes. That's going to be the opening speech at the center's dedication, he signs. If you approve? I look around the table, at Dean's proud smile, at Walker's loving gaze, at Mom's tearful joy, at Sarah's radiant face, and at Adrian's transformed heart. My family, finally speaking my language. I have a better idea, I sign. Why don't we tell the story together? Adrian's face lights up. Perfect, just like family should be. The waitress approaches, and Adrian orders for everyone in sign language, not a gesture out of place. She responds in kind, one of the deaf professionals hired through our program. As we sit there, sharing coffee and signs and love, I realize that revenge didn't just change my family. It healed us. What started as a plan to make them understand my silence became a journey that gave all of us a voice. Mom taps her cup for attention and signs. To new beginnings. We all raise our cups, hands moving in perfect synchronization. To new beginnings. And in that moment, in the blend of silence and sound, signs and speech, past and future, I know that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. Together.